Ho mai ia porou ariki, tō tātou nei rangatira, tō tātou nei tīpuna. No reira, kei te kimi tūru etahi atu, kuni kātua whakawhiti atu ki te tepu, kia whakarongo ki ngā kōrero te wā. Hoi anō ka hoki ake anō ki ngā kōrero, ko te wāhanga whakamutunga te Runanganui a Ngati Porou, ko Ngati Growth, toru tukau mā toru ngā kaimahi o te rapekinga o te Runanganui o Ngati Porou. Hoi anō, hua nui ake ngā kaimahi i tēnei tau. Hei whakamaharatanga ake ki a koutou, mena kāre no koutou ki a rehita. I runga tonu i te rarangi ingo atu iwi, me haere koutou ki te whārangi ipurangi te Runanganui hei reira ka tae koe ki te whakakiki haere i ngā tono ke uru atu i tō ingo i runga tonu i te rarangi ingo atu tātou nei iwi. Mena, ka rehita koe, ka hei koe ki te whiwhi piuta mō ngā karihipi o te Runanganui. Ka tae koe ki te pōti i ngā hui. Ka tae koe ki te pānu i ngā pānu ka tūkanāt e te Runanganui ki a tātou. Hoi anō. Kuni ka ātatau ta whare, ka whakawhiti atu ki te tepu, me te kare kia hei whakatū whera i tā tātou nei hui. Kei te ururu mai ngā ka whakahaere o tahi wāhanga o te Runanganui o Ngati Porou. Kuni ka whakarongo ki a rātou e kōrero ana mo a rātou nei wāhanga. Tuatahi ake ko te kōrero tuatahi o tā tātou tiamana Patrick Tangaire. Me iana whakaaro mo te ngā tau kei mua i a tātou. Me te mea no hoki, koko nei a tātou, muri aki ia ko George Reedy, ko ia te kai whakahaere, te kai hautu o tō tātou nei Runanganui. No reira, tēnā koutou e whakarongo mai nā ki tēnei whakapoahotanga motuhake mo te hui ātau, mo te Runanganui a Ngati Porou, 2024 mawhā. No reire, te iwi kuni ko te tikanga ia ka tīmata tātou nei hui, kei te titiro whakawaho tō tātou nei tiamana ki te karanga atu, ki te tohutohu atu, ko ngā me kei waho tūtū haere ana kia hau mai ki rō whare. Kia hei tātou ki te noho tahi, ki te whakarongo tahi ki ngā kōrero o te wā pāna ki tō tātou nei Runanganui. No reire te iwi, kāre kore he nui ngā kōrero ka puta mai te rangi nei, no tō tātou nei iwi. No reire me hono tunu mai, ki te reo irirangi o Ngati Porou, ki te whakarongo, ki te tātou nei hui. Anō nei, mena ke te pirangi kui te mātakitaki i ngā pikitia, me haere koutou ki te live stream e runga tunu i te pukamata. Hei reire ka ki te karongo i ngā kōrero o te wā. Tēnā pe ki te rongo koutou e te ketu o ngā manu o ngā iwi o Ngati Porou, e ketu mai ana, kei te kiki haere te whare. Kāre anō, etahi kua whai tūru, i runga tunu te toko maha kua whakawhaiti mai nei, i roto tonu i tō tātou nei whare i tēnei wā. Roro te tuanui tēnei whare a tāhua tūnei tarangi nei, kei konei tātou kei te pā o Pākirikiri. I raro tunu i te manakitanga o te whānau arua taupare.
Rawa te rora me atu kakaranga kire matua we aroha mai katoa o te aroe, tāwhi te arago tō purongo, kia mau te tie, o Ngati Porou. Ai e noho ka tukunatu kia pāpa bauhaere o mānei whakahaere tō tātou karakia.
tatanai, o te inoe o te ariki. A kuku mai tātou ki runga. Kuku mai ki runga. Hei hoatongia mātou.
E te karaiti tohungia mātou. E tō mātou matu e te rangi. Kia tapu tō ingoa. Kia tae mai tō rangatiratanga. Kia me te tāu e pai ai ki runga ki te whenua. Kia rite anō ki tō te rangi. O mai kia mātou ai anei he taro mā mātou mo tēnei rā. Murua o mātou hara. Me mātou hoki e muru nei o te hunga e harana kia mātou. Au hoki mātou e kawea ke whakawaia. Engari whakorangi a mātou te kino. Nau hoki te rangatiratanga, te kaha me te kroria. Ake, ake, ake. Amen.
E te ariki tēnei mātou ruruhi ake nei te rangi. Te kei tuitui ake ko te papa. Tuia ki te rangi ki runga nei, tānu ki te papa e tapoto nei. E tau iho ake ko koe te kei. Whakaatu i ngā rā, e rota ke te omara matanga. Ke whai kroria kore te omata mahi katoa. Nai nei a ake tuna tu. Amen.
Someone sends apologies for lateness. His microphone is on first that time.
And Selwyn for lateness.
Ka te hino kua mutu te karakia. A kone ka tutu mai e te hai o te potepu ki te whakatau i te iwi.
Ngā whakamoemiti ki tō tātou matua nui te rangi. He tika tunu kia whakahonore tia, kia whakakroria tia tōne ingoa i ngā wā katoa. Nē reira, tēnā tātou ko whaiti mai nei tēnei ata i runga i te karanga te Runanganui o Ngati Porou kia huitahi ai tātou. Ko nei te wā tuatahi, ko noho au i tēnei tūru, hei whakahaere te tātou hui. Ko roa tā heroini e whakahaere ana i nei hui, engari kei te moho katoa tātou i runga i ngā tohu a te trustee i makere aia. Tēnā hoki rā tātou i o tātou tini aitua. Ko te Māori rongo nui tērā o tātou tūheitia i mate i tērā tū marama. Te karau anō hoki a Sir Bob Gillies, te whakamutunga o ngā hoi o te rua tekau māwaru. I tērā wiki ko te wahine hoi waka anō hoki tērā, Kiwi Campbell. O te rā te pūkahu no te hunga mate, e kore rawa rātou e ware tia. Me Papa Richard Ranguhuna, ara anu atu, e kore rawa rātou e ware tia. Wē nō rā ka hoki ngā mihi kia tātou e tau nei, tēnā koutou nau mai, haere mai ki te tautoko, te kaupapa o te rā nei. Apologies so far received are, I believe I have to read these out. Okay, he puka tō tēnei. Lunch should be ready by the time I finish reading these out. Okay, Charles Wirepa, Hepetema Te Puni, Huti Puketapu Watson, Angeline Greensell, Elizabeth Houston, Molly Pardo, Lillian Tangaire Baldwin, Reverend Connie Ferris, Harata Gibson, Joseph Morris, Lionel McCarthy Martinga, Julie Stitchbury, McDonald Solomon, Jackie Royal, Jane Poe, Wattie Goldsmith, Tui Womanhoven, Diane McMillan, Courtney Kururangi, Ada Rangiwai, Beryl Waikari, Nancy Opodi, Egypt Keelan, Joan Bowden, Linda Munro, Sonia Terekia, Julia Wano, George Kurodia, Amanda Waitai, Calva Ruru, Kobe Tepairi, Marcus Opodi, Mason Wetini, Chrissy Tihore, Ruby White, Chantal Campbell, Romney Harrison, Kiriana Walker, Hugh Stewart, Natana Hiratare, Alexander Kurodia, Laurie Harrison, Georgina Haig, Cheryl Johnson, Denise Hovell, Makere Johnson, Christine Rangi, Eliza Waruhei, Kerry Ann Collier, Missy Wimotu, Des Reedy, Sarah Kane, Kiriana Fox, Caroline Thompson, Danielle Portai, Mehana Te Huia, Sheena Ifopo, Tiria Smaula, Nanette Conan, sorry if I've mispronounced that, I myself, I'm used to it, tangeriri, all of that. Yeah, I'll say. Gwenda Findlay, Paris Kaitai, Tuari Kaiai, Tracy Takarua, Hope Sadlier, Susan Wallace, Winsome Kennedy, Te Aroha Coleman, Alice Hunt, Nata Natare, Travis Tawira, Maria Tamepo, Horne McClutchy, George Hokamo, CJ Fox Campbell, Kirby Wimutu, Vicky Henry, Jesse Lerm, Karaitiana Tibble Poe, Henry Banks, Wipere Mita, Hiki Tai Green, Leroy Kururangi, Mason, Lionel Vetty, Marissa Tekani Love, Andrew Williams, Olive Naden, Joe Naden, Tracy Takarua, Kirby Wimutu, Missy Wimutu, Andrew Collins, Joan Elangata, Gwenda Findlay, Laurie Sadlier, Rena Ellis, Dean Warner, Joanne Wistrup, Kerry Elliott, Arihia Poi, Mason Wetini, Irene Loda, Jason Akuhata Brown, Kylie Portai, Derek Hope, Kura Tihore, Kevin Pewhairangi, Ricky Lee Pewhairangi Lawton, Christian Lawton, and finally for lateness, apologies from Sir Selwyn and Amo. Are there any more apologies? Heni Tibble, who's Pia Pohatu? Hi, who's recording this? Albie.
Who's recording?
Rangi mai te hei. Did you get those? Iruera wharehinga. Hine taitoko. Paula Tibble, Angela Tibble. Hine tu Dao. Heni Waikari. Penny Waikari. What are they saying?
Sorry, just Watty's online because he's got COVID. But he's not an apology.
Oh, okay. Watty is not an apology. He's online.
He's got COVID. Oh, well, that's why.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody move the apologies, please.
I do.
Moved by Heki, a second by Phil.
Philip Hope.
Those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, okay, carried. Looking for a mover to receive the minutes of the last AGM.
Has to be someone who's here.
Someone that was here. You were here? What's your name? Jessamine Wano moves it. Seconder? Bobby Reedy, seconded.
Yeah.
Those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, carried. Okay. So, ko taku reporter I naene. Now, ko te nuinga o aku kōrero, taku reporter kei roto I te poko nei. Ngā wari noa ki te pānui, hara te me roi a koe te pānui aku tuhi. Ngā wari noiho. Koe nora karau mo te pānui ngā slides katoa. Hara tēnā te mai te mea. Koe hoha no koutou ki te whakarongo kia. So bullet points ni. Tuatahi me mihi, he tika tunu kia mihi atu ki ngā mema o te poari o mua. Ngā mea kāre I eke anō ko Dean Moana, ko Maraika Womenhoven, rāua ko Tini, rātou ko Tini Derek Fox. Ko ngā mea kāre I tū anō rātou ingo kia tū ki te poari, ko Maui Tangohau, Kelly Blackman, te Raukupenga, me Trudy Lewis. Ko te hunga I makere mai I raro I ngā instructions, ngā tohu atu trust deed, ko Ani Pāhuru, ko Ray Kohere, Tui Womenhoven, Lil Baldwin, Tangaire Baldwin, me Sir Selwyn Parata. E tika tunu kia mihi atu kia rātou. Outgoing chair. Yes, he tika anō hoki kia mihi atu ki tō tātou tia mana o mua kia tāhere weni. Trump Kupu. Eka, kare tunu au moho tu te. Oh, yes, e me ngā mihi ki ngā kaimahi katoa te Runanganui. Next page, please. Trump appointed. Okay, our two reps mo te rau kumara, ko... No, e toru rātou actually, ko Ray Kohere, ko Tui Womenhoven, me Karen McClutchy Hookie. Koe te tahi. Kei te muho koutou, ko te nuinga o te poari, he mema hau, te nuinga. E rua nua māua o te poari o te rātou, kei runga i tonu i te poari i tēnei tau māua ko nā Raihania. He apologies anō mō tēnā, na te mea ka tai tūreiti mai eia, rāua ko whiti, kei te hura pohatu a nā rāua ko whiti o te tuahine o nā. Ka tai mai rāua ākuni. So 85% of the board is new. 12 new, 2 old. Well, not old, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Okay. Rohinga Tipuna is established. Yeah, next one, I think. Transition with the new year children. Oh, well, kei te kite mai koutou ngā kaupapa I kōrero nui tia I te hui o Ngati Porou I te timatanga o tēnei tau I ue pohatu. Ko wetoke.
Ko weto.
Okay, well, they were te reo me ona tikanga, te taiao, hauora, and te mana motuhake. And ka hoki anō ngā kōrero ki te rā whakanui a tāhereweni, te a tāhua o tauarangi whakahirahira. Te maha noa o ngā iwi o te motu I tai atu ki ue pohatu, me taku mihi anō hoki ki ngā iwi katoa o te tai rāwhiti, mai I whānau apa nui tai atu ki ngai tā manuhiri te aitanga mahaki e hekama, ka mutu te rangi a tāhua I tērā. E hara te mea ko ia naki I rahi hoki a Ngati Porou I runga I tēnā kaupapa. Nā reira e kore rawa e mutu ngā mihi kia tā hereweni. I'm nearly at the end. Ara, tiro kei te harapa haere tātai. Now, hei te whā o Hanuere, 4th of January, ka tū anō he hui aiwi, a Ngati Porou hui, te take I whakarite a tauara, I te mea hoki he maha tunu ngā tāngata o Ngati Porou ka hoki mai ki te kāinga mo te Power Wars. So we'll have a Ngati Porou iwi hui on the 4th. Ke whakatakoto hea e koutou e tātou o tātou whakaro, ngā mea hia tiana tātou ki te kite. And also, hei rapa kōrero I a koutou mo te haerenga mai o te premier hei te marama o Pepuere. Kei te kōhete te au e tako.
Kāre anō kia taurawa.
But it is on the 4th?
The hui aiwi
Yes,
is on the
okay. All right.
Power was on the 3rd.
Whatever I said about the premier, disregard it. You never heard a thing. Yeah. Okay. And you know what? Kia au nei, ko mutu taku ripoata. Here, kei roto I te puka nei. Yeah. Kia ora koutou. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Hi, kia ora rā. Can you hear me? Hi, kia ora. Just one thing to add to the Chairman's report, just a recognition of the ongoing growth of the pūtea in our organisation, the Tokomaru Group assets, 298 million heading towards, just over the 300 million, 310. I've missed the slide, apologies, but I'm moving on to my presentation. Kia ora rā. Mine will be short. I've actually managed to delegate upwards to the chairs to do the presentations around the individual parts of the organisation. So mine is, if I can find the right piece of paper, mine is going to be simple like the chairman's. It's no secret we had a cyclone, and its impact and how it's impacted on all of our whānau is still being felt throughout the region. I just want to acknowledge all of the work that has taken place over the last little while. The response to recovery stage is nearly, well, I think we're there. We're over that part of it. So just acknowledging the road repairs, marae home restoration, debris cleaning, marae work, and over that period we also had our teams doing significant woody debris cleanups, about 80,000 tonnes of woody debris. I was trying to figure out how big that was, but it just scales out. I think those who may have stood on the beaches will understand the scale of the problem that existed. Moving from recovery to resilience, what does that look like? We're still working on helping our communities to put in place the right, let's say, resources to help them in the event of a new one. So those things are still happening on the ground. We also took an opportunity to take the pulse of the region with a roadshow early on after the cyclone. It's fair to say people are okay, but still anxious about rain events. So a lot of our future focus is going to be on health, hinengaro. I don't want to use the English version of it because it just turns it into something too negative. But hinengaro will just help our whānau to work through the issues, and over time we'll start to see some improvements in that space. Our Tiaki Tangata Tiaki Kāinga group, the volunteer group, is still doing a lot of work around making sure that our communities have the right knowledge, tools, so they've got equipment and things like that happening. See, quick, eh? What have we done? What does it look like? Current environment. I did want to talk about headwinds. So the not just us, but our country, our region, all of those things are happening. Change in government, not only been a change in who's in the driving seat in Parliament, but also about the change in policy and things like that. There's been a couple of big ones for us as Māori, and there's a couple still coming through the pipeline. But those of you who don't know about Section 7AA, it's part of the Oranga Tamariki Act, and it was put in 2019 to ensure that Māori tamariki, when they were uplifted or put into care, they had to go back to their iwi, hapu, whānau, to ensure that the care was appropriate, tika in terms of tikanga. As a consequence of that, we saw a reduction in the number of Māori kids going into care in the regions of about 2/3 of them. So over that short period, there's evidence that shows that about 1,500 babies didn't go into care. But the government still, in its wisdom, enacted a repeal of that part of the legislation. There are things going on in the background to try and ensure that the purpose of the legislation is not lost. So the purpose is to actually make sure that our whānau have access to their whakapapa when they're getting pulled into these things. So while the legislation may be repealed, we've still got an opportunity to try and change the way the system works. I for one, am not necessarily convinced that without the legislation, we will make any great headway, because in the past, without legislation, the Crown and its servants have not followed what I could call good tikanga around looking after our kids. The smoking cessation one, I've just raised it as a we continue to not promote smoking, but we're on a target of reducing. Well, we've gone and put in submissions, and we're still working on those things within our communities to reduce smoking. It's the biggest killer of our people in the region. So we're still, as an organisation, still working on it. The other two things we all know about, Treaty Principles Bill. Those of you who went on the hikoi, kia ora. All right. The impact on our organisation directly is likely to be a reduction in our revenue for the contracts and services that we provide in the health, social services, housing spaces. But that's, I think we've been here before, but it is tough. What are we going to do? Well, we've just got to pull, use a bit more the top 3 inches of you to figure out how to make things work better. I think that's where we're going in terms of the innovation, transformation. Those things will come over the next few months while we figure out what the lay of the land looks like after the government's finished working with us. And I've got to say, this is an example of what happened during the cyclone, where our people from outside of the region also reached in to help. And I think now we've got to continue that approach, to continue to reach out and ensure that they have the opportunity to provide support where they can. So that's about us tapping into all of those Gen Zs and all the rest of our Ngati Porou whānau. This is NPO. I look after that part of the organisation as well. The NPO itself, someone will do a proper or full presentation on the issues. I just want to acknowledge, as Patrick has done for the main board, the NPO board members that were there. Ngati Porou Oranga used to be Ngati Porou Hauora. It's now changed. I won't go through the names because I'm liable to not recall them all. But thank you to all of those NPO board members who worked tirelessly, actually, to shift our dial around health and social services for our communities. Despite our challenges, our revenue's grown from 29 to 38 million in the period. We've managed to eke out a, let's just say we didn't spend all the money, we've got about 900k left from that. You'll realise that the role of that part of the business is not to make money, though, it's actually to provide services. So most of this money just goes out in terms of salaries and contractors. So it's just money in, money out, essentially. And it is our first full year of operations under there. And I've talked about the political, oh, that's not there on that one. Toitu, and also Toitu's got its own presentation. I'll let them speak for themselves. Again, an acknowledgement of those board members. I've been very lucky to have really good board people who have supported the kaupapa. And we've got them again, but I just want to acknowledge those that have moved. The presentation will talk about our model for sponsorships and grants going forward, so you'll be able to see what we've been doing in that space. Our year-end position, I haven't got it here, but I know that we didn't spend all the money that we were budgeted to spend in that period, mainly because it's just too many other things going on in the community. For me, I'm not going to get to speak again, so well, I hope not. I just want to acknowledge our staff. They're at the backbone of our organisation. All the good and sometimes the bad things that happen as a result of who I consider to be the most important part of our business is our people. They've gone above and beyond whenever I've asked, and COVID, cyclones, weather events, anything else, the team have been great around that. We've got a kahui kaumātua cohort set up inside the organisation to help with our transfer of wealth of knowledge and reo and whakapapa, waiata and mōteatea. If you're in town and you want to drop in for karakia in the morning, 8:30, you're more than welcome. And the team are getting to a space where they actually turned up at Tamararo this year as a, they put a team in. I'll just acknowledge them for doing the hard work in that space. We're still embracing the new way of working. It's not about the system or the bureaucracy, it's about the voice of the whānau and what they're doing. So all of those things, listening to how we're operating, being developed inside the organisation. It's not an easy journey when for 20 odd years, you've done what you wanted to do and told people this is how it's going to be, to actually, we now need to listen to the voice of our whānau and use that to, design our services. Ka pai? And like Patrick, I just want to acknowledge the past board as well. They were courageous in allowing me the latitude to go and do these sorts of things, create the structure that our organisation has created. Not to say it's the final end of it, but it's on a journey. All right? Kia ora. Thank you. No questions. Are you good with the green and puppy?
I will work it out. Questions? Ka pai. Hang on.
Koe Ngati Porou.
Atu ngā mihi kia koe, ngari kāre koe I kone. I te mea ko tā mai koe I tēnei wā, tēnā koe ko haramai, graced us with your presence. I kōrero māta, I kōrero mo tō hui tino, whakahira I ue pohatu, te mutunga mai o te ātāhua o tēnā hui. Ka mutu, I rongo kōrero au, te wā I haere tātou ki pōneke mo te hikoi. Karau I hikoi I tō tā. I wish I did. Because I rongo au, aha ko te nui o ngā tāngata I reira, te ratau ki te tanga I a koe, ka wehe haere, kia wātea te huarahi kia koe. Me te koe, me I whakarite kia Moses, e whakawehe ana te moana ki ngā Israelites. Engari acknowledging you I tēnei wā korua tai ko tō hua wahine ko tā mai nei I tēnei rā. I know you were late because your mokopuna was performing first at the Tamararos. So kia ora anō kia koe, kia korua. Kia ora tātou, we'll carry on with our presentation. Thank you, Ag.
Kia ora whānau. Firstly, just like to thank everyone for coming, those that are present in person and those that are online. One of the fabulous things about coming to our hui ātau is we actually get to see, touch and feel each other. So I think it's absolutely fabulous that we're all here. Life's all about the growth. It is what it is. Anyway, and I'm a bit of a fraudster at the moment because I see over here that I'm the chairperson. Well, that's actually not quite correct. I was actually the deputy chairperson on the previous Ngati Porou Oranga board, which, as George stated, was the first time that we'd operated with the combining of the Ngati Porou Runanga, social services, housing and health. And we were the interim board, we were actually the Toitu board, and moved over and held the line and got the organisation set up. So this is our first year of operating as Ngati Porou Oranga, yes. So I drew the short straw to be the presenter. And I'll declare that I do have a vested interest in hauora, as I was an ex-employee of Ngati Porou hauora for many years. And I just really want to pay tribute to past board members of Ngati Porou hauora and past staff members of Ngati Porou hauora who actually held the line for us in very challenging times. And one of the wonderful things about actually having merged our services with the Runanga social services and housing, it's given us a greater scale of affordability to actually, bring things like pay parity to our clinical staff that in my time as a manager we could never quite afford. And so we've enjoyed the positive things like that by being a greater collective of people. Presently we have, and I'm not going to read all the stuff on these things, Like Patrick said, you know, there is a lot of stuff in the annual report, but we essentially have an enrolled patient base of 9,038 patients. So we're probably the smallest primary health organisation in New Zealand, and we probably are the only Māori organisation, iwi, that actually owns and runs our hospital. And I think that's something that we should always be proud of. I am particularly proud of the fact that Ngati Porou can boast that one of our nurses, it was the youngest person in Aotearoa to become a nurse practitioner. And a nurse practitioner in my day, try and get our nurses to go and be a nurse practitioner, heck, that was like moving Moses and moving the water apart, mate. And I just like to take my hat off to the young lady who achieve that, because you know access is a big issue for us at home, and the reality is a nurse practitioner can prescribe medications, they can even sign off death certificates, so that's where we're going to ensure that our whānau can get better access to services. You know, we got services, the prime services, and we all like to show off that we did something new, and I'm just going to take my hat off for the old board, because we did have prime services in earlier years, even before I got there. And so, you know, and challenges, we've always had challenges. Money comes and goes with the government, and, you know, we will ride out the next lot of challenges with the change of legislation that's on us. Infrastructure, improved, all that helicopter whirly stuff can land in your clinic, because that is actually key to keeping us alive, is actually getting us out quickly. So it's fabulous that our staff have been able to focus on things like that, creating, you know, we might think an 0800 number is not important, but man, you go and find out how to create one and maintain one. That is another thing about access, because when you're feeling down, you want someone on the line straight away. You don't want to wait and say, oh, sorry, bro, you got to wait for an appointment in 3 months. Say, ka pai. And our Centre of Excellence in terms of the research. It was lovely to see the research, some of our local young people, and I see, you know, young Fuchsia's girl, she did a little research project with Ngati Porou, and so that was absolutely fabulous. Staff did a bit of a survey around the top hauora priorities, and you'll see them. Mental health, diabetes, drug and alcohol, IMS, immunisations. Is that screen going to go up? Because this is probably the most important slide of my presentation. And I can't move on till it's up there. I don't know how to use this thing. Oh, mate, that might be someone telling me, sit down, girlsy. Come on. Oh, well, while they're looking for it, you always have a plan B. So I can go on to housing. You know, we had provided transitional housing. You can read all of that in the book. We collaborated with TBK to urgent repairs on homes that were affected by Cyclone Gabrielle. We have a whānau oranga supporting nearly 1,000 new whānau referrals, and we developed and implemented our own Ngati Porou whānau oranga approach to service delivery, awa wae ora. We supported hapu social services to provide hapu community and rangatahi programs to over 500 whānau and hapu members. And I'm just going to pay tribute to Amo in this, because this goes way back to the days when she was sitting in the chair of the CE, where she carved off, got some money, and actually said, here you people, whānau hapu out there, you want to set up some little committees and drive what's important to you fellas in some of these health programs, you fellas go for it. It's lovely to see that it's still going, hapu social services is still going today. So kia ora to everyone for doing that. And then we've got Kaupapa Māori Navigation ACC services, and they've had 25 referrals this year, because it's really difficult, when you have a bit of an accident. I'm running around with a sore knee at the moment, and it's nice to know that our people who are affected actually can have someone advocate and help them through these processes. So we're in a better position to meet strict legislative requirements and standards to provide our own Ngati Porou iwi care to our mokopono and whānau. And for those people that know me, they know I'm an absolute legislative geek. I actually believe that it's the law, whether we like it or not, that rules our lives. And if we want to make change, we need to learn how to be part of that decision-making process. Right, so can we go back to... Oh no, we'll finish on that slide. Someone really doesn't like me. Come on. Okay, so in the book there, and then there's some whānau oranga services, and we've got a range of 22 different funding contracts to provide services. And like George said, you know, the challenge for us is how do we actually get direct funding to ourselves as the iwi provider to define what it is that our people want so we can deliver directly to those needs rather than to the way the government structures the funding contracts. Because if we do that, we're always delivering outputs versus really addressing the core needs of our whānau. We can move, I can move that myself, eh? Ciao, ciao. Ka pai. Okay. I don't know how to go backwards. So, and then the last slide before I talk about this one is about we help Pākirikiri in terms of receiving firewood, and that's a really important thing for our whānau, because, you know, a lot of people are frightened to turn the power switch on, turn the heater on and burn their wood. They're always saving it for the rainy day. They don't realise it's pouring right now. So getting firewood's a big thing for our Pākirikiri. And we held wānanga, whānau wānanga, and whānau received, 7 whānau received essential home repairs. Oh. Well, don't ask me to sing because I certainly can't do that. But yeah, well, I've just got one more slide, and it is really, yeah, it's, wow. It obviously doesn't want me to talk about it, but I think the challenge for all the job of the Hauora board is about, we've got to improve access, because that's the only way we're going to get better. When I finally decide I want to do this, I need to make sure when I want to go to the clinic, I can get in the clinic. Okay? We're improving our access, we're improving our workforce, our systems within there, our data collection. We want to do all of that so you can make informed decisions about your care. And please be aggressive consumers. It is your right and it's your obligation to you and your whānau to make sure you get the best health care that you can get. So, you know, being an aggressive consumer is not like, hey, excuse me, what does that mean? You know, if you're giving me this medication, what are the side effects? That's what you need to do. You need to be really clear about everything in your journey. You know, we want whānau to enjoy a quality of life from before you're born to after you die. Because, you know, when you talk about mental health or ourselves not being tipped over and imbalanced, grief is a huge part of that. So, you know, how you die is as important as how you live. quality of death is a very important thing to your sense of well-being. So, you know, you have to have healthy individuals to have healthy communities, healthy hapu and healthy iwi. And I just, and that's our intent. We want to do all of that. And I want to leave a bit of a good news. I feel sorry for the whole staff because, you know, that safety board member said yesterday, hey, can you guys go and find out this, can you go and find out that? But I do pay tribute to Sonia and her team for having responded to my last minute questions. So they tell me at the moment, you know, we've got registered nurses, 14.6 FTEs. In PK, in Gisborne, sorry, we have 6.2 registered nurses and 8.4 across the coast. And you're saying what's 0.4 of a person? That's about FTEs, full-time employment equivalents. And GPs at the moment, we've got something like 9.1 GPs up. In Gisborne, there's 5.4, and up the coast we've got 3.7. So now's the time to get in there and get those appointments. So kia ora, thank you very much, enjoy lunch.
Pere te ripuata Agnes Walker. Te tia mana tuarua o te Ngati Porou oranga.
29.38 mil. How did we get that extra? That's probably by good negotiating skills on behalf of somebody with the Crown to access further contracts. Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes. Ka pai. And thank you very much to my whānau for not asking me curly questions.
Marae.
I just want to say, I think one of the priorities we're missing in Tairāwhiti is meth. P addiction. It's one of the most plaguing things in our communities, hitting all our families directly and indirectly, but a real hard basket to deal with. But affecting tamariki, homes, and I don't know whether these things are set from the national target, health targets. So it's about like, what's the data around the need of our people here in Tairāwhiti, and I know meth is a huge problem right throughout. So just want to put that in, it should be one of our priorities. I just want to share from a time when I was back in the Hauora board back in 2004 days, when Papatame Tamaru and ones like that were still alive. They had an amazing program. I don't know what the government did with it or the DHB, but it was called HINT program. And it was about access, and what those nurses were doing were going out into the workplace, especially into the forestry blocks, where the most of our men are working dark to dark and aren't getting screened because they're not accessing that area. So these nurses were going out into the forest and screening the men there. So I'm just saying, these. I know it's about the tono for such contracts to become available, and but you know, it's having that access for our ones that work dark to dark as well and can't get there. Kia ora.
Thank you for that. And, you know, if you note in our whānau survey results, that was a priority area that was identified by the whānau around drug and alcohol support. So that's definitely something that the staff are working on. Ngati Porou, we fund. Oh, yeah. Yes. We do fund the marae-based rehab programs, which Anne had originally introduced some years ago. And, you know, I'm going to say this, the whole of Tairāwhiti will be missing Tuta Ngairemu in terms of the drive and the passion that he had personally and going throughout our communities, right throughout Tairāwhiti. So, yes, we've got a major commitment to continue working in that space.
And all questions come through the chair, so it's
Oh.
not unruly and we know who's where doing what.
Oh, kia ora. Kia ora, Fuchsia Harrison here. I'm an ex-employee of Ngati Porou Hauora back then when I worked there. Yes, I really do like your priorities. They are really awesome. But the biggest one, I think, being an ex-employee of dental, is we really need a dental service. A consistent, not just people that come in and give us free service. We need a consistent dental service. It is so important to see all those things up there, cardio, it's all big risk if you don't have good dental health. So we really, really need a good, consistent dental service. Kia ora.
Fuchsia. Hang on, can I please respond to that? It's probably really timely that we're in this whare at this point in time, because this community actually raised that very issue around having better access to dental services. So the board has recently recreated the journey and the relationship with University of Otago, because in earlier years, Ngati Porou Hauora did have a very strong relationship with Ngati Porou Hauora Dental School, and that is a piece of work that's in progress at the moment. Gee, of us are getting curly here, girls and boys, come on. For the...
Tēnā koe, Chair. I just want to ask the question around research in terms of... so if this is the year in review, what research are we looking at to concentrate on that? The second part of that is because I heard George mention about the henengaro, which I'm guessing comes out of that first line there, Manukeri and them's research on the thing, which was in response to the Gabriel, etc. So rather than the knee-jerk reactions to things that are affecting us at the time, if this is it in review, what's going forward to be researched to bring those figures down? Amihi.
These sort of things here, they have been national targets over the years, and they're sort of common causes, and the reality is they need treatment, they need people to actually, like I say, Agnes Walker as a consumer needs to work her foot into the clinics and get these things done. Look, this very thing, I was here, 2 weeks ago. The Ngati Porou Oranga Research Centre held a national conference all about the wonderful activities that are happening throughout Ngati Porou, and in our report on page 56, they've got a huge, mate, they talk genomics and, one of the things about knowing what your genes do, not fitting into these ones because I eat too much, it's actually, I really realised that it's your whakapapa. So if something's wrong with you, like if your people die young, don't let the doctor say to you, don't need an autopsy, girls and boys. Go and get your whānau autopsied, because there may be something wrong with you genetically that can then help your other people that are still living. So we do have a great list of all of those things here that we've been researching, and it has been a purposeful drive to ensure that our research is specific and is going to help ourselves out as the people who live here. Ka pai? Gee!
I'm just reading the research report that was done in the Matakawa area, and I just want to point out that our key priorities in terms of the community hui that we had at Henderupe, Mātahi o te tau marae, contact with the Waikura Valley, and there were people from the Hicks Bay Wharekahika community that also participated. Our key priorities are not really reflected in this report. One of the main priorities that Matakawa people were asking for was a resident doctor. What we heard was the lack of services that are coming north of Tiki right through to Pōtikirua. Our Pākirikiri had those concerns. That is our main key priority is a doctor. That our people deserve to have a full-time doctor. If you look at the isolation of the northern region, we have so many complications. We have to travel an hour to Te Puia Hospital for service because we haven't got a doctor within our area. So I just want to make our health board just aware. Kia ora.
Thank you, Michelle, and I hear you, and that's a constant challenge for us continually. Thank you.
Kia ora, Agnes Ngamihi. I just want to ask, with Healthcare New Zealand making the cut of up to 1,500 staff affecting public health for the coast, no doubt, I just want to know what bearing will that have for us in terms of our health here in the future, the near future.
I've just got some sound advice which said that should not affect us because we don't actually belong to that particular outfit, so our servicing is done separately. Oh, I've just got some advice that says that Ngati Porou Oranga doesn't belong to or works with that particular outfit, so in terms of our day-to-day servicing, we should not be impacted. But that doesn't take away the stuff George talked about in the Crown's proposed, slash and burn attitude to servicing. It will impact us. Yeah, but in terms of that particular question, we'll be okay. Ka pai?
Ani pāhuru wai tēnei rohe Ngati Porou. Mihi ana kia koe. It's lovely to hear wahine voice giving a report. Ka nui te mihi kia koe. My question's around the hospital, so I don't know whether you or George will want it, but just an update on Te Puia Hospital, where we're at with that, and if the birthing unit, because some of us who are starting to be nannies are really concerned about being able to have our mokopunas on the coast. So is the birthing unit going to be happening again soon, or if not, why not? What's the hold up? And also one of the issues that's come to my ears around the hospital is housing for staff. I understand we've had, and this is from the Pākirikiri there, who have had, we have a lot of international staff coming in to Te Puia, which they love, and they love our people, but there is a lack of housing. So, koe rāku pātai. For them?
And having read that our birthing unit is under repair presently, and it's hopefully due to be for completion around March of next year. And apparently we've joined our Ngati Pepe services and our maternity service together to try and maintain servicing. Ka pai? What was that big question? The hospital. Housing. Housing for staff. That might be a bit out of my league, but like I suppose everything at the end of the day, it's about we can only do what we've got with what we've got. Our intent is pure to try and improve access, quality service, getting ourselves tended to. So we are as concerned as you guys are as Ngati Porou beneficiaries. We all got the same concerns, and yeah. So, okay, thank you.
We've got 2 more questions and that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Nā tātou ko ngā mihi ko mihia. Ka tika ka tuku ngā mihi tuatai ki tō tātou nei kaihanga. Mō nā mea katoa. Ma tātou kia ora tātou me te matengo o tōna tama tō tātou nei ariki ai Ukraiti. Ki te whare e tū nei. Pupuri ana ngā mātauranga a koe a koro tēnā koe tūpakari nei. Toi tū, te mana wahine, Auntie Ange, top lady, thank you. I appreciate everything you've done for us. Tēnā koe, kia tātou katoa, ko hui hui mai nei, nui te mihi, nui ngā mihi, kia koutou oki. My pātai, the mental health. Are we able to empower the mental health in tō tātou nei rohinga? My dad, Suman Te Puni, you guys may know him. He's been in the mental health industry as a drug and alcohol counsellor for 20 years now. And he's one of the Indians out there doing the mahi. And anei e tū ana ki runga te mano o Ngāti Rangi me te whānau hini tāpura. And yeah, I think mental health is quite crucial. It's quite crucial. Drugs and alcohol ain't the problem. It's the mentality of our people. Me hoki whakamuri ki o mātai nei mātua tūpuna. They don't have no doctors, they don't have no nurses, they don't have dentists. Ko tō rāta nei hinengaro care. So my question is, do we need to build, I don't know, tautoko ngā kōrero for building more homes for our staff? I'm a builder, I'm a current builder, and I'm keen to build some homes. But yeah, tērā pēr me whakaoki mai rātou mā ko wehe ki te ao whānui, kia rātou ngā mātauranga, kia whakaoki mai kia tātou. Tērā pēr, it's time to reach out to those that know. Our whānau, there's heaps of them. I've got heaps of whānau, the Haupori, Te Hei, Womanhovens over in the Netherlands. I'm also Fiji Indian. We're all one. It's not Māori, it's not Pākirikiri, it's human beings. But yeah, that's my part. So how can we empower the mental health side of things? Kia ora.
That's an awesome question, and it is something that the board has been working on. And like I said, that's been something that's been identified by walking throughout the Ngati Porou region, and whānau do see that as a huge need. And like I said, you know, mental health is actually catching ourselves early sometimes, just catching ourselves early, having support. So it is a key focus area for us going forward. And I see our chairman now has, as a board, and I think we're all here, all the Ngati Porou Oranga board is present. So we certainly will be hearing what you've said, and and putting a lot of focus into that in the coming year. So having said that to you publicly, I'm going to have to make sure next year when we're standing here, we got some improved stats around that. So that's the challenge for ourselves, to make sure that we know what our starting point is today and how we've improved upon that in the next year. So thank you very much.
Kia ora Ag. Hene haig taku ingoa, ko au te kaihautu o Ngati Porou Oranga Mental Health and Addiction Services. Mine's not really a question to Ag, mine is really a request of the whānau actually. And from some of the kōrero that's been said this morning, and in particular to a comment that Ag made about not reaching out herself for the doctor. Same goes for mental health. But one thing that a real common thread in mental health is, and one just happened to me yesterday, is managers or people from other services in Tairāwhiti are saying to me, whānau are coming here because they don't trust the confidentiality up the coast. Now that happens in mainstream health as well. Whānau, we got to trust ourselves. We got to trust each other. We're in it for the same reasons you are. Kaimahi in there, we want to look after our own people. We want to keep in the survey that was done in 2019 across the motu, the biggest kōrero that came out of that, which created a document called the Whāriki, the biggest kōrero that came out of that was, we want our own to work with us. So Ngati Porou Oranga and Hauora have worked extremely hard to get our own to work for us, and then when comments like that come back, it's not helpful. It is helpful though if you bring it to me or you bring it to the manager of that service. It is helpful. If it truly is happening for you, bring it back to us. No good taking it to the Pākirikiri in Gisborne. All they want to do is feed off that. But you bring it to me, I'm going to make sure that the people that you're talking about are held accountable. I'm going to make sure that that's not my service or my people that are doing that. We want to be there to help each other. And the reason why I want to say that is because I want the hospital to keep going as well. I want the Ngati Porou Te Puia Springs Hospital to still be here for my mokopuna when my mokopuna are there. And I want other Ngātis to be looking after my Ngati Porou mokopuna. I was very proud to be at a hui earlier this year, and with a room in Wellington, a room full of Pākehā, and we had to identify which organisation we belonged to. And one Pākehā lady got up and she mihi to me across the room, and I thought, shit, I don't even know you. But yeah, no, sweet. And she said, I've just Googled you, and I've just found out that you're the only iwi-owned hospital in New Zealand. And from there, that kōrero grew to the world, to the universe. So yeah, ngā mihi nui, kia koutou.
Ka pai.
Kātahi no kua mutu te ripoata Ngati Porou oranga.
Last question.
Kia ora tātou, ko Hiria tōku ingoa. Kia ora e. One pathway. Out of those 9... Kia ora tātou. Oh yeah, everyone online, eh? Oh, kia ora whānau, ko Hiria tōku ingoa. Just the pātai ki a koe ag. Out of those 9 point something FTEs, GPs, how many of them are full-time and how many are locums? Kia ora.
50-50. And you know, one of the things about doctors, and this goes back for years, this country actually was founded on the basis of doctors owning their own practices and running a business, and they happen to be doctors. And they've actually come to that time in their lives where they've retired or retiring, and the new doctors spend something like 8 years, hard work, training and becoming doctors. And the choice that they make is actually not to become GPs and do the work that the old doctor did with their psyche. They want to be locums. Because when you're a locum, you have a lot more freedom. So it is not as simple as Ngati Porou Oranga not wanting to recruit full-time permanent doctors. That has always been the intent of any health provider, is to get doctors. So all we can do is do our best. It's very difficult to get people to live in rural New Zealand when they have wives and children. Your husbands, and so it is, so it is sometimes out of our control. And if our staff have managed to achieve a 50% permanent doctors, I take my hat off to them. So thank you very much. Okay, and Mr. Chair, I take it that was the last question, and I just want to thank you all for being relatively kind to me. Kia ora.
Koina hoki te mutunga te kōrero a Agnes Walker.
The chairperson of Ngati Porou Oranga, and ask change spots with that lovely dashing young man down there at the doorway. Kia ora.
He pai he rawe ngā pātai puta tuki a i te rangi nei, mō tō tātou nei ha hauora i te puia. A koni ka kōrero Patrick Tangaire mo toi tu Ngati Porou.
There you go. Here's your... Kopa? Ai.
Kare roa rawa tēnei ripoata, kei te moho katoa koutou te kaupapa o Toitu. Ka heke mai ngā moni ki a Toitu, ko te mahi a Toitu, he tuku atu te pūtea, hei tautoko i ngā kaupapa e pāna ki ngā tikanga, te reo, koena ngā kaupapa Māori. Tai atu anō hoki ki ngā mahi tākaro. Koe nei te hui ngā pūtea i tuku natu i tēnei tau, ko tēnei moni he mei kohia mai e... Warfala, what's his name? Willi Apiata. Me etahi moni o te Runanganui i tuku natu te ena pūtea i toha ngia ki ngā kura katoa o te tai rāwhiti. Anyway, righto, tēnei māweira, anei ngā kaupapa i tautoko hia. Just look at the pictures. Picture paints 1,000 words. Koe nei ngā kaupapa i tautoko tia. Ana, tēnei special grants, i tuku natu he pūtea hei awhi i tēnei whakāturanga o te pōka whakāta, me te symposium i whakahaeretia i hine rupe. Anei anō etahi kaupapa i tautoko nge e Toitu, nā ngā tamariki kei te mahi tuna tia ki te awa. Matariki, Rima a te ara. Te kaute, 52,000. Te kaumano ki ia rohe. Ia rohenga, something like that. Ara. Ane. So, yes, uawa ki te poari o tērā tau, the first board i te mea huki i te tau tuatahi, i pāngia te ao i te COVID. So, ka raru te poari tuatahi. Te tau tuarua, COVID anō, te tau tuatoru, kare mātau i tai ki ngā rohenga katoa ki te pātai ki tēnā rohe, he hao koutou hia. Ka mutu i te tau whakamutunga, ka whakaruki a tātou e te āwha, Gabriel. So, ko te poari i tērā wā, ko au, ko Wipere Mita, ko Ani Pāhuru, ko Agnes Walker, ko Naumai Whitewood, me Ngārimu Parata. So, ko Maua Nake, ko Wipere kei runga tonu i te poari, ko ngā mema hau, ko Erana Keelan, Kapua Smith, me hine moa awatere. Koina te poari hau. Nā reira ngā mihi kia koutou anima, ngā mihi makere mai tēnā poari, and ngā mihi ki te poari hau. So, mehe pātai wā koutou, kare tika tā koutou te tiro ki ngā whakāhua. Kia ora tātou. Pātai, ara. Pehe, ara te whakautua tō pātai. Here's a question over here. There's a question over here. There's some answers along here.
Kia ora. Aroha Cooling, Rosaria. One of the funding things that was put out, and which was discussed by our rohinga, was for an administrative position. How you might not thank me after I talk, though. Yeah. And I didn't see it in the reports either. But anyway, our rohinga, the whole cluster met, and I guess when we come back to the po, maybe it's mana motuhake, maybe it's rangatiratanga, whatever it is, our feeling was we don't need that offer. We need to have that money to do the things that we need to do on our marae. We don't need an administrator, and it's an opportunity we would like to take advantage of for our marae.
Thank you for reminding me to bring that up. I did forget about it. So one of the rohinga tipuna put in asking Toitu to fund them $30,000. That was the request, and they gave their reasons why. The board at the time said, we think this is a really good idea, but we're going to turn them down, and we're going to give every rohe $50,000 a year per year for 3 years. Now, it went to rohinga. I pātai mai wetahi. O hea te take, etahi taima he marae, etahi taima he hapu. Te maha no o ngā hapu me ngā marae kei Wainganui, kei roto o Ngati Porou. Koira te take wehe i roto i ngā rohenga, i te mea hoki e whitu anake ngā rohenga. Ka tuku natu ki tēnā rohenga, mā koutou e tau patu. Kare wāhi kia Toitu, kare wāhi ki te runanga. Ka tuku na te muni kia koutou, ki tō rohenga, mā koutou e whiriwhiri. Thank you very much. Oh, oui.
Kia ora, ko Michael tōku ingoa. I just had a question about the tertiary education grants. So just a clarification first and then a question. So it mentions $1,000 per undergraduate and $2,000 for each postgraduate. Is that an annual grant for the course, or is that a one-off grant for...
Engari, ka tautoko ngia tēnā kaupapa i a tau. Ai.
They're annually provided,
Yeah.
but they are a commitment.
So if I'm doing a 3-year bachelor degree, do I just get $1,000 or would it? Okay, that's fine. Just but you can apply each year. Okay, that's great clarification. And then the question was about. I was just interested in the gender balance of the applications, where it mentioned here that in last year, I guess 181 were female and 49 were male. So is that a pattern which has been seen over many years now? Is it kind of, are males just not applying and going to tertiary education? What's driving that, and is that a concern or something that's been looked at?
Who can and who can't apply. Kare me te he tone taha ko e tono mai. Kei tēnā, te tika ngā mehihi ana te tono mai. So we don't know, we don't determine gender. Yeah. I've answered 3 questions. I'm waiting for someone to ask me money or the bag.
I think I understood what you're getting at, yeah. But my question is not about who should be applying or not. It's just, is it a concern? Is that a concerning trend that young males are not applying for tertiary education?
Mr. Chair, if I might answer that, it is a world trend.
It's redressing a historic imbalance, actually.
Okay, well, that's fine. I just wondered what some of the thinking was around that. So thank you for clarifying it. Yeah.
Before I take my seat, I must acknowledge also our CEO, Rhonda, very much, and Leanne. They do a lot of work. Kia ngāwari te pātai era Bailey.
Kia ora tātou te whare. Pātai tāku pe, kia korua ko taku tuahine a Rhonda. I just wonder, like when I look at the sports element of Toitu, and I think about a lot of the Ngati Porou teams, I mean the tyranny of distance to tournaments and participation, and trying to increase kind of our young Ngati Porou ability to participate in tournaments. Two parts to the question. One is, what is the thinking and you know the strategy behind supporting those Ngati Porou teams who go out to represent us, including the cultural dimension that they obviously take? And has there been any thought, and I know I think I've shared this with you, Cuz, around a consolidated effort around that, and then perhaps opportunity to seek other funding, perhaps from New Zealand Rugby included in that?
He pātai tēnā. Hea te pātai. Well, the current board has a different way of thinking about from the last board regarding sport, and we're still working on that. Kei te tika pāpi, yes. But kei te hia tonu tēnei pōri ki te tautoko i ngā mahi, ngā kaupapa hākina kina tākaro. Ai.
And to also pursue opportunities.
And no questions. Too many slides, nui rawa ngā pātai. No, it's not on. It's not on.
Usually comes to you not to. So we have discussed with you reviews our funding. Sound. Okay. Hallelujah. So we have been reviewing all our funding policies, and we're really keen to look at where we can get alternative funding, and you've mentioned New Zealand Rugby, and do a collaborative
funding approach, if you know what I mean, which means that we can draw out and use more of our money for other cultural activities. But it is definitely a focus is to look for other funding opportunities that can complement our pūtea. Hey.
Oh, kapai. Thank you.
Kia ora, Patrick. I just want to go back to what Aroha was saying with the what the decision is from the board in regards to giving to rohinga tūpuna. I just remember when I first came home, the fisheries company was giving annual grants to our marae. Now we're the richest we've ever been as an iwi, and we're giving less and inconsistently to our marae grants. So how does giving to a rohinga tūpuna 50k that then, what's the entity that that money gets deposited into? What?
That you form within your rohinga tipuna. And the example I can give is Te Reo o Waiapu have a trust, and that is we have 8 marae in our rohe, and we have one representative from each marae. So it is a trust of 8 people.
Another entity, we already have our marae accounts in that. Some rohinga have 6 marae, some have 8 marae. We got 7 marae. It's about being fair. Giving to each operating, functioning marae has been fair, and it works. Now, creating another, we've got to run off and create now a rohinga trust to receive the pūtea and get it. It's just, can we think of more practical and flowing ways, and why can't we just give to the marae, as you've always done? Because setting up these other entities is causing political turmoil within as well, to be honest.
We absolutely can do that. No one is saying we can't. So we just need a tono to say, toitu, consider this. We're not saying no.
It's easier for everybody on the ground because they're all operating voluntary.
Strategic plan. Oh. First, Owen.
There is an entity in Rohinga Tipuna 5 that represents all the marae. There is an entity here. And I'm the chairman of one of the marae that is part of those.
They want the listeners.
Thank you very much for the consideration.
Aye.
So we can work collectively with the marae in Rohinga Tipuna 5.
Kia ora tātou. Karen Pewhairangi, te whānau arua taupare, te whānau a te Aotāwarirangi, me nā hapu nui o Tokomaru. As two hapu, we've been in the High Court fighting over our customary marine title, which was awarded to the 2 traditional hapu in May this year. We were, in order to be awarded the customary marine title, we were asked and actually directed by the High Court to set up Kapuarangi Takutai Moana Trust to be the holder of this customary marine title. Then we had to go ahead and run formal elections to elect 3 trustees from Te Whānau a Te Aotāwarirangi, 3 trustees from Te Whānau Arua Taupare. We're still in the High Court, settling the wāhi tapu and getting the legal entity over the line. So these 2 hapu are looking at working together to move forward on our managing and holding our customary marine title. The setting up of a rohinga tipuna entity, my question to Ngā and Whiti was, well, Rua Taupare and Te Aotāwarirangi have already got trustees. How are you going to formalise your trustees for your rohe tipuna trust? Because is that about the rohinga tipuna? Hey,
because we're not talking about marae here, we're talking about these tipuna of Runanganui ono, of which 2 hapu have already had no choice but to set up a legal entity to satisfy the High Court process. So the question I had was, how are you going to, the trustees that have been appointed by, formally elected by Rua Taupare and Te Warirangi, are they going to be the trustees for this rohe tipuna legal entity? There's conflict there, and I don't know how to fix that up. And we actually need help, and we can put a tono in to Toitu, but then you've got the needs of the other hapu in Rohinga Tipuna 6. So, yeah, it's not really a question, it's just a statement of where we are at this point in time. We've been scrapping with ourselves, okay? We went to the High Court, and she said, can you first go back to Toko and sort yourselves out?
Tēnā koe tāhine. Kia ora tātou, Rhonda Tibble, I'm speaking on behalf of Taharora Marae in Rohinga Tipuna 6 and for the Waipiro whānau. We've had this discussion too as Marae chairs, and we already have Te Ako Ngā Hapua Waipiro as our collective in Waipiro. The question that Karen raises is a really good question, because when I sought clarification on the trust that Whiti and Ngā were putting together, my simple question is, Rohinga Tipuna belongs to the settlement trust deed, but I can't hear marae inside your construction. So I'm wondering, where are marae in it? And the answer was, good question. My problem with that is my puku doesn't sit right with it. It doesn't sit right with it because if you're not including the marae chairs, then you're not including the hapu at that particular time in the way in which we are organising ourselves now. And the fear is that you are then standing up constructions that are about community. So community doesn't belong to our trust reality. Tēnā tātou.
Kararaina.
Tēnā tātou te iwi. Kararaina ngātai no te whānau hini rupe, Rohinga Tipuna tahi. The e rua aka kaupapa. The first one is about the Rohinga Tipuna grant. And I would like to mihi to our Rohinga Tipuna reps, Wayne Abraham and Pohatu Pautu, who have come in and collectively helped us through that process. And we're still having those discussions. But we've found we're managing it, and we're thankful for the offer. And we will together work out how we're going to distribute those funds, as was mentioned in the letter from Rhonda. Tuarua, mā te huruhuru ka rere te manu. Tuaka nei au ki te mihi atu ki te poari. Tō tātou Runanganui i homai, te pūtia nui, hei hiki i te kaupapa a kairākau. Series number 5. Tūwhaki iriwara te tipuna. Nō reira, kei te tangi te ngākau i whakai ana koutou, me kore tērā pūtea, e kore tērā pikitia, e rere atu ki te ao. Nō reira, literally, mā te manu, mā te huruhuru ka rere te manu. So, Māori whakaata whānau, if you haven't engaged, you need to. You'll see some pretty impressive whānau, nō konei, nō te kāinga, e tū ana i te mahi I roto I te ao whakaari. He whakaari, tērā pē, that could become one of our priorities, whānau. We're all actors in here, I know we are. We're all pretty good at, putting forth ourselves and putting our hands up to do things. There's an opportunity. Tū hei kai whakaari, e hara I te mahi māma, I know. I did it for 9 days, never again. Mihi nui ki o tātou kai whakaari, ko taku tamahini tētai. Kia ora, hey? What? Oh yes, and also while I'm standing, I'm really serious, although I'm joking. We have got a depth of people in our iwi that are actors and are very capable actors. What's missing in our rohe is somewhere for those actors to be housed. My daughter, for example, has had to move to Wellington to get the 3-year degree in drama. Now she had to go back up. Now she's in Auckland. up there. She has to live there because there's nothing at home. There's nothing here to promote te ao whakaari. There's no production company here. There's no kāinga for our tamariki. And there are hundreds of them, probably thousands of Ngati Porou, because we're really good at acting. We're really good at that. We're drama queens. Tangata rongonui mo tira āhuatanga. Hoi anō. Kia pai, kei raro.
Okay, I'm not scared, but we're finishing with Sir Selwyn. I'm not scared of questions, I mean, but kei te haere te wā.
Nei tāku ki te rohenga tipuna tuaon. E whitu ngā marae. E uriau no ngā hapu oroto i tēnei rohe. Aha, ko kārau i pōti i roto i tēnei rohe. E whitu ngā marae, he nui ngā hapu. Te mahi mā koutou o roto i tēnei roha, whakapūmau i ngā kāwai tangata. O ngā marae, o ngā hapu. E hua mai nei, he kaupapa, hei tui a koutou i roto i tēnei roha. Haunga te taha moana, haunga te auta. Engari, ko te whakapapa e tui nei, i roto i ngā marae, i roto i ngā hapu. E korona Karen. Mō te ao tāwarirangi mō rua taupare. Arāno e tahi hapu i tuatu i era. Koe anō, ka hono atu ki ngā hapu o roto o Waipiro, rohenga tipuna, whanau rā kairoa, ngai taha rōra, pe whanau e i tikura. Nō runga nō raro kare whakapapatia, i roto i te whanau rua taupare, te whanau a te ao tāwarirangi. Nā reira, me hui koutou. Kārawarowa i te tūhongotanga o ngā uri o roto i tēnei rohe.
Kia ora tēnā tātou, e mihi ana no kia koutou katoa i tēnei wā. Ko nā. Aroha tēnei taku tainga mai ki reiti, e kaupapa no mo taku big sister i te ata nei. I rongo ki ngā koro pāne ki tēnei rohenga. Te aroha e puta mai e koutou o tēnei rohenga. Taku pātai inoi rānei kia tātou, waiho e rā kōrero o tēnei rohe e kōrero ana. Kia tau.
Kare te haere. Oh, yes, kei te haere nai. Kia ora e te iwi. Kare aku pātai, tū noa nei ki te tuku mihi atu kia koutou te puari o Toitu, puari tawhito, te puari o enei rā. Tēnei te reo o te hoko whitu atu, kei te mōhio pēr koutou katoa. Kei te whai mātou ko te parihao hikurangi i te huarahi roa ki te matatini. Nō reira e tūake nei ki te tuku mihi atu kia koutou, nā koutou i tākoha mai te pūtea nui, kia ea ai te kaupapa nui nei. Koira tērā, kare au pirangi te tōroa ngā kōrero, hoi anō mihi tuarua, nāku tonu ki te runanga, ki te rōpū o Toitu i homai pūtea ki aua, kia whai atu i taku tohu pairua, kua tutuki pai, hareruia ki te atua. Ko tōna kaupapa, ko te mātauranga, ko te uru tomo mai o te reo Pākehā ki ngā kura kaupapa Māori. Hoi anō, koina noiho taku tū ki te mihi atu, me te mihi tonu kia koutou katoa mō ngā mahi kua tutuki i te tau. Tēnā tātou.
Ka tira te inga ki arora, mana whakaro ke rungarawa, e arai ki te ara e tikai, whirina ki tātou katoa, kia ko tahira, ngā marae e tunua nei, ngā maunga e tunua nei, auera e tamama, e mama e te pauri nui, e patu nei i a hauera, tahira, ngāri mu.
Koina te kōra Petro Tangaire me ngā kōra mo toitu Ngati Porou kei te whai mai ko ngā kōra o Ngati Growth. Ko tā rātou hea mana ko Sir Robert McLeod.
At today's meeting, most of my board members are here, and also Henare, the Chief Executive. Whereabouts are you, Henare? Because I might just have to get his support if there's any tricky questions that come my way. But I'll talk about the board and the changes at the end of the slide. So, just to start. Just to remind you, Ngati Growth in this, and indeed it's portrayed in this diagram as a subsidiary of the Runanga. It's a wholly owned subsidiary alongside its sister entities, Ngati Porou Oranga and Toitu Ngati Porou. And I suppose that does reflect the specialised nature of these subsidiaries. They've got a job to do, and this structure demonstrates that it's best that we conduct those jobs in these specialised boxes rather than have them all carried on in a single box. So we're supposed to, in a sense, be tohunga in these functions. Now, the trust deed actually stipulates that the role of Ngati Growth is to be the commercial arm of the organisation, and it implies that essentially our role is to make as much money as we can. That sometimes is controversial in Māoridom as to whether that focus is the right one, but I think that if you look at the trust deed, that's been the design of Ngati Growth. And also, I personally believe, as does my board, that the best thing we can do for the organisation is to actually maximise the flow of dividends or resources from ourselves to the other parts of the organisation who have the responsibility directly for producing the outputs to the iwi. The social outputs come from the other arms of the organisation. Our role is to provide resources to the providers of outputs to the iwi. So that's what we are best to be doing over time. That does involve a trade-off between a current dividend and a future dividend. That is a bit tricky, making that trade-off, but that's one of the strategic issues that we in Ngati Growth have got to make as well, in consultation clearly from the Runanga as a whole. How do we actually trade off? Because the more we distribute today means the less there is for reinvestment in growing that putia over time. So you can see there's a bit of a tricky trade-off there that's worth, I think, just reminding ourselves of. So in a sense, we make investments and we manage businesses. I should just point out also that in support of my remarks here today, the annual report that you've got has got a lot of the detail. Okay, if you want to really drill into that detail, I recommend that you have a look at those reports. So, just coming on to the next diagram. Where do I point this thing? There we go. This diagrammatically depicts how we actually produce our returns and where we're producing them, particularly in rohe versus out of the rohe. Our biggest asset category is what we call funds under management, and that's been the case for a long time. So in fact, since inception, my ancestors, kind of in running the commercial company, which used to be called Ngati Porou Holding Company, took most of the settlement and dedicated it to financial investments. This is stocks and bonds, sort of passive investment. The advantage being you diversify across a whole range of activities, and by diversifying lower the risk. And also by virtue of putting that resource with a third party, then you're actually minimising the active management of that money, which if we do active management, you've got to have more people, that's more cost, more wages. So we say in our industry, we describe that as being passive as opposed to being active, and that essentially means we're best to hand the resource to a third party and get them to do it. Now, we're not 100% in that mode today. We're actually probably fair to say in the current generation of governors, we feel that we've got to do more proactive, more active investing, which we kind of characterise as direct investing. Main reason for that is the view that the direct investments will produce higher return than the passive investment. That trade-off that's another trade-off though, because the beauty of the passive model, which we've historically done, is you get a diversified portfolio. What that means is not all the eggs are in the one basket. And what that actually does mean is that the risk of the return is lowered. But arguably you might actually get a lower return actually also if you do too much of that. So we are shifting the needle a bit to more active. For those people who also want your investments to be rohe based, or if you want to produce an additional benefit of creating employment, then that also gives you a nudge in the direction of direct investing, right? You know, but so there's trade-offs again through all these things. Now at the moment, the total assets of the commercial company amount to about 275 million. And that is the bulk of the Runanga's total assets, if you have a look at the balance sheet. We've only got about 25 million of debt. And for those amongst you who are accountants, and that's probably gladly to say very few of you, there is an identity which is that the total assets must equal the total debt and the total equity, right? So if we've got 275 million bucks worth of total assets, we have 25 million of debt, that means we've got $250 million of equity, which is the assets minus the debt. When you go to the bank and you ask for a loan, what the bank asks you typically to do is list your assets, things that you own, take off the liabilities that you owe, and what's left is what we call equity, the net assets. And in our case, that's 250 million. Now, of the total assets of 275 million approximately, there's about 55 million of that that's invested in the rohe. So it's not immaterial. It's about 20%. And that excludes the funds under management, okay? Which essentially is a funny kind of an asset, because if we invest in stocks and bonds, shares and equities and that kind of stuff, that's kind of that's not really situated anywhere, right? So that can distort that distinction of whether we're in a rohe or not. Basically, we've got to take the funds out of management when we're making the decision about, well, what is actually invested here versus invested elsewhere. So that gives you a bit of an idea of the macro. Now, in the year, we're reporting on the year ended 30th of June 2024. And in that year, we have had a very good result of around $10 million of profit, but we actually paid a $6 million dividend, which includes interest to Toi 2. So we paid 1.6 million. It's an in-substance dividend, but it's effectively legally interest to Toi 2, and the balance of the 4.4 million was a dividend to the Runanga. So that in a sense demonstrates the point I'm making, that 60% of the profit essentially is going to the Runanga. And that's in line with the idea that our job is to make as much money as we can to resource the rest of the organisation to produce their outputs to the iwi. Now, if we've got 275 million of total assets and 55 approximately is in a rohe investment, that gives you the balance of some 220 million of assets invested outside the rohe, including the funds under management. All right? So that gives you hopefully a good overview. This just talks a little bit about what I've just gone through, which is the profit performance. The profit of the 10.5 million there that you can see in the June ending 2024 is up on the prior year by 1.3 million. It was a really reasonably challenging year, as you know. I mean, New Zealand is not boasting in this period a fantastic economic situation. The government has been running its books in the red through this period. It's been in deficit, which means that its borrowings have exceeded its earnings. its expenditures have been exceeding its earnings, so effectively that deficit is like a net loss on the government's books. We've had that in the country. Unemployment has been rising, inflation's been a problem, and obviously interest rates have remained somewhat high, but they've been coming down. So it's not really been a fantastic year. If you go and look at the business confidence surveys through this period, they're all pretty bleak, coming a little bit rosier at the moment. And of course, the Reserve Bank was battling inflation throughout this period. So I think in the context of the economic environment, that result that we've achieved is a good result. And of course, it comes in the aftermath of a $9.2 million bottom line that we made in the prior year. So it's very nice that we can, in each year make money of that amount. Just sort of highlights there. Where did these profits come from? Why did we do so well? Well, in the managed funds area, we did very well with our equities investment. It's interesting, for those that know, the United States share market's been on fire, particularly through the tech stocks. Many people would say it's kind of gone beyond the realms of possibility. So it was a very powerful performer, and we are fortunate that we went into those categories of equities really and caught that wave. Again, another trade-off, because prior to doing that, many people would have said, oh, those tech stocks look pretty expensive. Why would you be going into them at a high value? And that remains, a decision that we've got to make ongoingly. The seafood business, which we have, which is Akaroa Salmon, based in Christchurch, that's been a phenomenal business, producing phenomenal returns. It's a standout performer in our portfolio, and again, it's not in Rohe, but certainly it's in our sweet spot because it makes a lot of money, and it also is in the seafoods area. So Dean Moana has been particularly key in guiding us and leading us in that investment. We've also improved our operations. We've lowered our costs, and we've been dealing well, I think, with some of our challenging businesses. And I'll go through some of those in a moment. Obviously, there have been some sad outcomes in the sense that we've had to close some of these businesses, including Ngati Berries, for example. But ultimately, at the end of the day, taking loss-performing businesses out of the mix is part of the reason why we get this better bottom line result. This is another sort of depiction, essentially, of the in-Rohe business activity that we monitor. And I'll just quickly run through these business activities here on the left of the slide. We've got the two aspects of honey, which is sort of the bee collection and the farming end of it. And then you've got the extraction plant, which is the second Piromere category. But that's sort of combined honey business. Then we've got the Pākirikiri farms, obviously, the two forests. We've got Makarika farm, contiguous to Pākirikiri. The native nursery is an emerging business that came out of the Ngati Berries closure, in the sense that we transferred the Ngati Berries resources into a native nursery, and that's actually resonated extremely well with the community. And we're reasonably optimistic that it makes very good use of the assets that have come out of the Ngati Berries activity. The Puanga farm is also on the list in Rohe. We've got various Ngati Porou properties, real estate properties that we've also invested in. Captain Morgan is one of those. And I'll talk a little bit about Captain Morgan in the next few slides. So, despite the fact that there's a clean-up job that's needed there, the reality is that we got into that asset at a very fortunate price because of the government grant that was involved. And to me, it's a bit like bending down and picking up a $5 note that you find on the pavement. Why not? If government is basically going to make our asset cheap, then why not, is our obvious reaction. We've also got the fish truck, which has been sort of the child, if you like, of the Real Fresh fish shop that we've also transferred this business into a fish truck. And that's getting very good feedback from the community in terms of its reach within the Rohe and also the prices that are being captured there. So I might just now quickly come through some of these asset businesses and give you a bit of colour. So if we start with Hoiti Berries, that, as you know, was a joint venture between Ngati Porou and Hoiti, which in a sense, of course, all part of the same waka anyway, in my view. And basically it was struggling for some time and actually making material losses. Certainly at the time I became chair, it was struggling and the results were not strong. And when results are not strong, you then end up with a business that's actually requiring capital. That capital takes the form typically of loans from the shareholders, and even that was coming under pressure because there was a disparity between the partners in financing these deficits and these losses. So that puts pressure into the system. It's fair to say, though, that Henare and his team did a very good job of taking a very, very substantial loss down to a break-even position in the June 23 close, which essentially also put on the radar the possibility of remodelling Hoiti Berries, extending it into a more diversified offering rather than just a concentrated offering, and seeing, testing essentially as to whether a change to that business model would be viable. We spent a lot of time doing that. I think at the end of the day, both partners were not prepared to put the financial capital in to take it to an alternative step, and ultimately concluded in unison, without tension or friction, that the best thing was to call it a day. And so that's essentially what's happened there. And we've managed to get out, essentially, I think, with the minimum of losses as a result, I think, of the measures that were taken in the run-up to the closure decision. And also, as shown on the slide, the assets of that business were transferred into a native nursery in Ruatoria, and that's essentially, as I say, has been received very well, and we're very pleased with the productive use of those assets on that reformation. Now, Real Fresh store operating in Gisborne, a fish shop, we decided to close that business. It was not profitable. We felt that in the ongoing sense it was unsustainable. We've been partly motivated in that by virtue of the fact that the Captain Morgan acquisition gave us the opportunity of transferring a lot of that activity to the Captain Morgan business site. And also we took the view that the fish truck upgrade was something that was needed in the community. And we've moved to that. The feedback, both by way of experience of the demand for the fish product that's coming from the truck, and also from the economic results through the income statement, demonstrate to us quite strongly that we've done the right thing. Essentially, for example, the truck goes to 6 stops compared to 1 as a prior stop. It comes all the way up to Te Araroa in the Rohe, and it's producing price reductions to Ngati Porou consumers of around 20 to 30% relative to the prior arrangements, which of course is very popular, and it expanded its offerings from fish to meat packs as well. For those of you who are participating or experiencing in that, I'm sure that from, if anything that I've been told, if it's half true, then I'm sure that you will all shout your applause for that. And there's also a pre-order function that's basically now operative in support of consumers getting access to the products. If anything, we're struggling to meet the demand, which ultimately does lead on to expanding the supply of that arrangement. There is a retail strategy. Essentially, we have had various vendors of businesses on the East Coast, coming to us and testing whether we would be willing to acquire some of their retail properties, and we have been reasonably positive about that. It's a backdrop to the Captain Morgan transaction that we do think that those businesses are profitable, but we've been quite happy with the idea that we transfer a lot of those profits to the consumers, Ngati Porou consumers in particular, through the prices that those businesses charge. I mean, obviously if we drop the prices by discounting, we actually make less profit. But so long as we don't make a loss and it's not actually consuming our other resources, then there is a why not response, I think, to that. So that does reflect the sentiment that we've got, that we should effectively expand these retail offerings on the coast and run them Because the other thing too is that they are property plays. Captain Morgan is primarily, from an economic point of view, a property play. It's a very good property. We could turn ourselves into landlords there rather than operators. And getting back to the fact that Ngati Growth doesn't want to really be too labour intensive in running businesses, it would make sense to seriously consider the landlord option with these kinds of assets, again, so long as essentially we're getting a good rate of return on the asset. Bearing in mind these categories of assets do have the potential of creating a capital gain over time in addition to the rent that the tenant pays you. So I think that these things, are quite exciting. If I come to Captain Morgan, many of you will possibly know that this is under renovation. If you take a survey of the quality of the food offering there at the moment, most people tend to be pretty negative about it. We take the view that that's something that can be improved. Okay, so that's a low-hanging fruit opportunity to make something better for consumers. The site is very attractive. Obviously, the summer period is coming up, and we've got the unfortunate timing of renovation going on through the summer period. But we will actually bifurcate that renovation and still be operating the main component of that store through the Christmas period to catch the Christmas demands for the kind of luxury items of milkshakes and ice creams through that sunny Gisborne period. This is also an asset that's worth talking about. It's the Marriott Hotel in downtown Auckland. Being an Aucklander for the last 30 plus years, I reckon it's the best hotel in Auckland in terms of location and site and convenience to the CBD. And we've had the opportunity of participating, I think a very good opportunity through the networks that we have. We've got about 13% of this asset. And we've got it on the ground floor. I think we've got an asset that will perform very well. Now, I'm sticking my head out and making a prediction. Most people of my background don't make these kinds of predictions. You stick your head out, it typically gets chopped off. But basically, we are targeting a 15% rate of return on this asset over time. That's not at all unrealistic. And again, it in a sense demonstrates what I said earlier about moving from passive funds under management more in the direction of an active asset which throws off a higher return. The higher the return, the more dividends we can give to the runanga. Bearing in mind from a consolidated point of view, we've had a bit of a debate in recent times about whether we should call these transfers dividends, because it's a bit of a misnomer in the sense that inside the organisation, if we consolidate the profits, the entire organisation makes the profit. In that paradigm, transferring resources from a part of the organisation to another part of the organisation is more in the nature of a transfer rather than a dividend. But we refer to these things as dividends, and that's a bit of a semantic complexity. So look, can I just close by thanking those directors that have come and gone. Diana Pukitapu, who spent 9 years with us, retired at the 30 June mark of this year, and she was fantastic as a director over many years of service, dedicated service. We're very sorry to have lost her, but at the end of the day, everybody's got to move on and make way for others to come on, and that's what she has done. We've got 3 new appointments in the year. Michael Crawford, who I should just perhaps ask to stand up and make themselves known. Michael has got an extensive background in iwi businesses in particular, and we're very pleased to have Michael as a member of the board. Ngārangi Bidwa, who was an alternate director with us, but basically then vacated after the alternate period, now has come back as a full-blown director. She's not here today and gives her apology. Bronson Marshall, who's joined us, where is Bronson? Over here on my right. We're very pleased to have Bronson, who has very good connections, works for NZTE and very well connected in the government area, let alone in general iwi. We've also got Bailey Mackey here, who asked a question a moment ago and gave some very good ideas about rugby and his ability to help in that regard. We've also got Bobby Morris, obviously, here, who's also a member of the Runanga. I think I did see Bobby earlier on in the meeting. I'm sure she's here, down there, right. So we're very pleased, and obviously Bobby as a member of the Runanganui, our board, gives us that advantageous connection. Dean Moana, who was in a similar position until the last Runanga voting, basically Dean sits on our board as a very valuable member. If you add that to myself, that makes a total of 7 directors at the moment. Can I also thank our staff at our kai mahi at Ngati Growth Limited, who have worked their butts off. We've actually got some of the senior staff here also from the business. Josiah Cook is over here as the Chief Operating Officer. And we've been very well served by our staff, which really these good results don't happen just on their own. So thank you to the staff. Can I also thank all of you for coming and listening, and I wish you all a happy and Merry Christmas, and I also wish that clearly to my staff and to my colleague directors. So without further ado, I'll close my address on that point and pass on perhaps to questions, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, up the front. Oh, there, you're there.
Kia ora. Sorry, I'll introduce myself properly. My name's Runanganui Porikapa awa tere te puni. Toku hononga ki toa tini marae. Te tupuna krauara para tēnei te moko puorongo. Nāna nei haina tea te tiriti mō tāta nei rohinga. Koera toku hononga. Tā kā wai whakapapa. E mihi kau ana ki a tātou katoa. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your mahi. My question is, I'd like you to share your understanding on investing into carbon credits. Through the doing a native a native nursery has been a dream for me. I want to build the biggest native nursery here in New Zealand. Well, one of the biggest in the world. Here in Te Tairāwhiti, where there's a reason we're the first to see the sunlight. We can show the world how it's meant to be by showing them how we live ngā mai ki runga i te pā. That's how we're meant to be. And I'd like to share with yous. I'd like to ask you, what's more valuable than money? It's a 4-letter word, he kupu Māori. What's that? The answer is mana. Kia toi tū te mana Māori motu ake. Kia toi tū te mana tāne, te mana wahine. Te mana wahine. Imagine if the women were leading the world. There'll be no war. Nā reira toi tū te mana wahine. I acknowledge our wahine. And back in the rā, the wahine are the bosses and the men. That's why nā te atua i whakapakari i te tāne, kia mahi ngā mahi physical, e mā ngā wahine. Women are master manipulators. Yeah, so back to my question. My question is, what's your understanding of investing into carbon credits, sir?
Okay, look, you know, the forestry asset is quite large on our balance sheet and gets a great deal of attention. We've got the benefit with, you know, Henare Walker, our chief executive, came into this role as the former CEO of Summit, one of the largest forestry companies in this country. So we've got around our table very talented, knowledgeable industry players in that category. Before I pass to Henare for a few remarks, I'll just say by way of introduction, first of all, the forestry asset is a controversial asset in this region, let alone other regions, given Gabriel, what has happened, and the slash byproduct of forestry. So it's not everybody in Ngati Porou is a cheerleader for the asset. But the reality, of course, it's a large asset on our balance sheet, and it's also a large asset on the balance sheet of other Ngati Porou asset owners and entities. So, and given that it's a major asset for us, we've got to maximise that value. Now, one of the problems, of course, is that the GDC, the regulators, coming in and imposing potential obligations on these assets that will actually, from an economic point of view, make them less attractive economically, and indeed could turn the returns from this category negative. So a big job that we've got actually is to manage the regulatory environment over and above the carbon credit issue. But carbon credits, of course, has played a huge role in keeping the asset value up over time. Obviously, these carbon prices fluctuate, but essentially it's been largely an inflating factor in the asset, and it's actually strategically an important, probably arguably the most important aspect for us to take advantage of through time. So we are positive about the category. We have the category in such a large, significant value on our balance sheet that we have to actually take it seriously. So anyway, Henare, would you perhaps like to just add any of your specialised comments to the issue, to the question?
Yeah, kia ora whānau. It's a very good question, and it's one that probably New Zealand's been trying to solve for a while. In terms of the value of a carbon credit investment. And I think the challenge, particularly with Ngati Porou and our land, is we have a lot of, I guess, forests that don't fit the current criteria to be able to take advantage of carbon credits. But there is a lot of work going on around biodiversity credits. So if something like that is introduced, then that will be a bit of a game changer to basically give landowners, iwi and investors more options to be able to take advantage and drive things like, native nurseries to a scale that could be, something like the largest in the world. And the other aspect, I guess, or even a project that we're working on is voluntary credits. Some of you may have heard of that, but that's basically working outside of the current NZU regime that we have in New Zealand. So basically you got trees that were there before 1990 and then trees after. And if you were there after, you can partake in the current environment. So I think there's a lot missed for Te Ao Māori in that space where we don't get the benefit of having, or looked after the environment for a much longer time. So that's a market that's been talked about for a long time. It's never really come to anything other than in recent times. Now there's actually been trades in the voluntary market overseas at the moment, and there are projects in New Zealand that hopefully in the not too distant future will start coming into fruition. And yeah, ideally we can be a part of that as well.
While you're still up, two questions. First one is about the nursery. What will it be looking at growing, and what purpose it would service? One of the issues that's affecting us in the Waiapu catchment in terms of the taiao is the riparian, and so over and above the ETS stuff and all of that, it's just about repairing that land back, especially the flood prone, the erosion, etc. I forgot my second one. Answer the first one and I'll remember the second.
Yes, so I guess first I better point out that we don't want to take the credit for setting up the native nursery. We come sort of in at the end. It's been a project that's been around for a while that came out of basically that focus to address the Waiapu catchment, and it's been probably a long time coming. It is also assisted by some DOC funding, so I'd like to acknowledge that. And that's certainly I'm not the native forest expert, but that was our first focus, to make sure that we get the right people to run it. So you saw the picture before, it's just being built. It's not necessarily just carbon units. We're certainly more focused on, we have our own forests. We've got maybe 22,000 hectares of land that we have to look after. In the forestry space, we've got about 5,000 of that we've replanted, and each year that's been handed back. And as that's been replanted, a big change going forward is the riparian in terms of how far you need to plant away from the waterways, particularly on very steep erosion-prone lands. So again, we sort of looked at it as another solution to, rather than order some trees from out of the region, to be able to have our own to address, some of the challenges that we face in that space as well. And then also, we had early discussions with the prior group who was running this around the different grants, etc., that they were getting to have opportunities to plant on their own whenua, but then the lack of availability for the native nursery. So it'll really come out of the demand, and whether there are trees that are better for carbon, but then there are trees that are better to stabilise the whenua. Yeah.
I don't know how much, or if you did talk about bees, but I'll use the bees as an example. So I watched the program on TV the other week. Excellent. My question, though, is I know that we have a number of other beekeepers up the coast. From what I can see, our runanga, or you guys, are really covering the whole market or taking the market. I don't know, but that's what it seems to be happening. My question really is, what is Ngati Growth or the Runanga doing to build that, independence, so helping our local businesses as well, the other beekeepers, for example?
Another good question. Yes, I guess going back in the Golden Run times, Ngati Porou probably had about, maybe 13,000 in terms of hive capacity. So are we taking over? I think it's a sign of New Zealand and the industry. It's well past the golden times, and over that period, between probably the last 3 years, New Zealand shrunk considerably. So really it's come down to, probably because of our balance sheet, we've been able to survive. And part of, I guess, our previous managers and governors' strategy was around the development of Porou Mere, which is the extraction facility in Te Aroro, was to work up that value chain to be able to control more of the operations, basically, because we were always at the whim of everybody else. We had the beekeeping, but we had to rely on the extraction, on the pottling, and now I guess the market's gone, because before it wasn't a concern. You just had to produce it and everybody wanted it. But now the demand's gone. We've, I guess our strategy is to focus on developing our own market direct to really the export market, because all the value's in the high end of the honey, and the low value's mainly domestic, and that's what we've never had as well. So to really not just sustain our business, but to be able to grow it big enough to invigorate the whole rohe, that's the solution, really. You need to build a brand big enough that can sell the volume required to grow the whole industry here.
Tēnā koe, ko Jasmine Wāno toko ingoa no te whānau te Aotaihi Awatere Marae, whakaangiangi. Kia ora. I'm also from Tangi Karoro Native Nursery, as you know. Just wanting to ask the question, what is the whakapapa of our plants that have been used for planting 4,000 that you've planted already and 8,000 still to come? And also wanting to ask that there are a number of native nurseries that are already in existence up and down Te Tairawhiti that would love to support you we are one of them. How can we, as separate entities, join with Ngāti Growth to make sure that you're a success with what you're endeavouring to do? And so that's one question. And then the other question that I'm wanting to ask is, what is the, blockchain? Your question. Sorry. We wanted to know what is the blockchain and AI technology that will be used to help support in that endeavour to equip our Ngāti Growth crowd with doing what you need to do to strengthen our fibre-based bioeconomy that we see as a potential for increasing the well-being, financial well-being of our people. Kia ora.
Yeah, that's a good operational one. So I'll start with the whakapapa. It's not going to be a popular answer, but I should have clarified. So with our Crown Forest licences, in terms of the forestry stuff that we're getting handed back, that's basically the pine forest. So in terms of what we're replanting in our current holdings, those are pine trees. And in terms of moving forward, again, I'm not the expert in native trees, but we're currently recruiting. We've got our oversight advisory that's starting up next week. Is that Josiah? That's Graham Atkins. So, I wouldn't want to step into place and say I know more than him in this space. And the next role we're going into is the forestation lead. So between Graham and whoever's successful in that role, and engaging with, well, first of all, surveying our land in terms of what we need in our forests, on our farms, etc. And then working with the rest of the industry and whānau is where we'll develop, I guess, the orchard plan in terms of what we're going to grow. But the focus and target is to source it locally out of our own whenua rather than try and bring in a strain from somewhere else. But yeah, like I say, I'll leave that to the experts.
H. Wairehu rohe Ngati Porou 2. You don't need to know my first name. My question is regards to, I much like to hear an answer from perhaps one of the people who actually deal with your investments relating to page 14 of the financial statements regarding all the equity investments, really. So my first part of the question is, what is your guys' strategy in terms of diversifying your portfolio? Because I can notice in page 98 of the annual report that 59% of our current asset allocation is in equities, not totaling into equities necessarily in New Zealand or in Aotearoa. Because most of the equities in page 14 relating to investments outside of the country, Trans-Tasman, which is fine. I just want to know, how did you come to the conclusion to invest in those equities, and what would your plan be to diversify from that 59% to a moderate amount, and what would be the strategy for that proceeding in the future?
Okay. The equities allocation, as you've seen, is the material one, and that is the result of, first of all, we have a SIPO, a Statement of Investment Policy and Objectives, which regulates us. That's approved by the Runanga annually, and we have to operate within the boundaries set by that SIPO, and of course we work up that SIPO in consultation with the Runanga. We also, of course, have an expert advisor, which was my fiduciary, renamed Mapua. Actually, we have Greg Peacock here on my left as a principal in that organisation that we work very closely with in designing the asset allocation, which is essentially the heart of your question, is the asset allocation in the category which I described earlier as funds under management. It's fair to say that equities is where we've put most of our effort, our focus, because first of all, equities as a category is a very diversified category. To the extent that we narrow that category, for example, to our own rohe or to Aotearoa, that is essentially reducing the diversification and increasing the risk. And also, as I mentioned, that the top line performer in equities in the last 2 years has actually been the US tech stocks. The NASDAQ is the stock exchange for that, and essentially that's where we've got most of our uplift. So what we have to keep an eye on, obviously, is the downside. We're not expanding in that particular category at this point because we think those assets are very pricey. We're on the winning side of that uplift because we got there when the prices were lower, clearly. And we have to make a decision now as to our exit strategy. So I think it's a good question. It reflects that equities in the funds under management category should dominate. I think that ultimately that will continue in the near term. I think, as a rate of return, an expected rate of return, that is the category that produces the highest amongst most passive categories at this point. But Greg, I mean, it's putting you on the spot, but if you perhaps yell out at your highest pitch, you can be heard. But would you have anything to add to that before I then ask? Perhaps a mic can make its way across to Greg in the corner here on my left. He's got one. And then I'll ask Henare to say a few words.
Thanks, Rob. And for a white boy who grew up in Christchurch, it's a real privilege to be here. As Rob said, the reason for investing in equities is to get diversification. So, you will own shares in thousands of companies around the world. I would say that the largest exposures would be to the large companies in New Zealand, Fish and Paykel Healthcare, for example, but also the large growth companies in the US. So, you will own shares in NVIDIA and Microsoft and Apple and so on. And, as Rob said also, we think those shares are expensive. They've been expensive for a while now. The difficulty is timing. And, our crystal ball is no more illuminating than anybody else's. So the secret is to not try and get too cute.
Okay. I'll try not to bore everyone anymore, but I think Hello. The question was probably a bit bigger. So there's a lot of diversification within the managed funds. There's equities, there's fixed interest, there's alternatives, there's gold, there's private equity. So there's Australian funds, there's US, there's New Zealand. What are we doing to move away from, I guess, the managed funds? As we've got a direct active investment strategy to focus on more things like the JW Marriott, where you can get the higher returns, I guess. So over the next 5 years, we're looking to grow that area as well.
Hello? Oh. Henare, are you guys? 2 questions. I think you just answered my first one in terms of gold and silver, investing in that space. The second one is, have you, like Ngati Growth, have you actually looked at creating our own bank? In Canada, a lot of native tribes run their own banks and run their own petrol stations. I'm just asking if you have looked into that space. Thank you.
Okay. It's fair to say.
Getting a growling from my left.
Just on that question about banking, I think Ngati Growth on its own is not likely to be able would be able to do that on its own. Although if many of you have watched The Bank of Dave and the recent Netflix production, that is an exception of which you could emulate on a small basis. But it is true that we have been approached over time, from time to time, by promoters of taking stakes in banks. And indeed, Kiwi Bank was talked about by the last government to be sold. It didn't ultimately go that way, but ultimately, a lot of this was subject to non-disclosure agreements, so I can't talk openly about these approaches. But iwi involvement in banking is something that is being pursued and constantly thought about by a relevant segment of our investment community. So we remain open to any. I don't believe we should go with a closed mind on anything. If it makes its way to the table in the way that it has, then it's usually worth at least exploring. So it's not a no answer, it's just that it's not likely, given the scale of capital that's required in banking, that we'd be able to carry off a banking strategy on our own. Yeah.
Tēnā koe. Thank you very much for the overview of many of the different business activities. One I just wanted to ask about was under the agricultural part of the business portfolio. Is there any quick update on the financial performance of that part, please? And the second part was, if you have a relevant benchmark to compare the financial performance of the trust essentially against, do you have one of those, and how do you feel it's going compared to that benchmark? Thank you.
Yes, well, I'll leave Henare to answer the agricultural piece, which is actually a large part of what we do, particularly in the inland Lohe. That's a very large part, sectorally, of what we are doing. In the funds under management side, which is where I think your second question comes to, we have a reference portfolio, what we call a reference portfolio benchmark. So essentially, we've got to compare ourselves to what alternative, next best alternatives is kind of the way I think about it, as a benchmark. And my fiduciary, Mapua, provides that ongoing, each report period, we are doing that benchmarking. And I'm pleased to say that we are in a good shape in terms of that comparison. So but Henare might answer on the agricultural.
So our agri portfolio is pretty much forestry and farming. Forestry's done okay, and I guess we were sort of saved by the fact that we don't have any harvest for about 14 years, so we're just planting trees and they're growing, therefore the value is growing. Farming struggled a bit this year. I think we had a loss of around 170,000. That's not cash loss, so I think a lot of farms, I've been to a couple of farm AGMs lately, been in similar or much worse positions, and sort of goes back to the question around carbon and its place. I know a couple of farms have only been able to sustain themselves through having the diversification of other income streams coming off their blocks. And I guess it's mainly been hit by the price of red meat, particularly going to China, which is we're just starting to see those improvements now. So hopefully that benefits is going to be much more than limited to Ngati growth, but to all the farms around the coast.
Thank you. Is that it? That's it.
Kapai, thank you very much.
Koina ngā pāndi, koina ngā kōrua tāma Robert McLeod, me he nari wōka mō Ngati growth, e me ara wai nei whakautu ngā pātai. Hei nora koera tētahi pātai mō pārui mo tētahi o ngā pātai I runga te live stream kāre kōrero tia. Nora re te iwi me mauturi mai a kuni ka whakarongo tātou ki ngā kōrero mo ngā piuta ko te kai kōrero ko Leonard Warid. Ko Steve Osler ke.
Ka tangi te titi, ka tangi te kaka. Te kangi hoki ahau, tihei moriora. Ko te mihi, tuatahi ki re hunga mati. Nō reira e nā mati. Pāri atu, hoki atu. Whaki atu rā. Rātou kia rātou. tātou kia tātou. Ko tēnei mihi atu kia koutou e aku rangatira, e hui tahi nei e tēnei rangi. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Ko wai rā tēnei. Ko Nin tuku awa. Ko Aisini tuku iwi. Ko Malton, Lincolnshire, England tuku marae. Ko Steve Osler tuku ingoa. Ko ho te Group Finance Manager o te Runanganui o Ngati Porou. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Thank you very much for having me again. Some of you might remember me from a couple of years back. I'm subbing in for my boss, the Chief Financial Officer, Leonard Warren, who had a family whānau commitment and so couldn't be here today. So it's my pleasure to take in his stead. So acknowledging him, I'd also just like to quickly acknowledge the auditor that we have here, Scott McPhail, who I think is standing over there in the corner. Scott, if you can just raise your hand. Scott's from PricewaterhouseCoopers. They're the firm that audits the group financials. It's a pleasure having Scott, and so to give some assurance that someone else has looked at these things to say that we've got this right, and Scott's done that. So thank you, Scott. So as I crack into it, and I'm very aware that, as happens, lunch comes close after me, and so everyone's hungry by the time I get to my bit, so I'll rattle on as quickly as I can. Just a quick overview, recap of what I'm presenting here. So these are the group financials. So that includes all the entities, if you like, under Tokomaru control, and so we basically add them all together. So that includes the parent Tokomaru, that includes Ngati Porou Oranga, it includes Toitu Ngati Porou, our charitable arms, and then it includes Ngati Growth that Sir Rob just spoke about, and all the subsidiaries under that. So we basically take them all together and add them up, their results, and then that's what we present as the group. And it's from that we can then derive a profit and loss, and that's this first page here. So a performance, if you like, over a period of time, in this case a year, from 1 July 2023 to 30 June 2024. Okay, so our income and expenses over that period. And to sum it up quickly, it has been a positive year from that. It's had a really good result, and as you can see on the board, two particular areas I'd like to talk to. First, the top one, the service delivery income. So that represents primarily government contracts received in recognition of the work we do in the hauora space, in the whānau oranga space, in the housing space, and our special projects and things like taiao. So that's there at the top. That increased almost 10 million between 2023 and 2024. So that's a really positive result for us. That's effectively leveraging government to give us money to be able to do things and help the people on the East Coast in the variety of things. And then we use that to pay for people to do that work. Predominantly in it's a not-for-profit type area in those types of entities. So we pay salaries, we pay contractors, and those people are on the East Coast, and so we contribute. That trickle-down economic benefit is really a really positive story. Now, if I can just talk about the pattern, the theme, if I go back to 2021, that number was 17 million, and in 2022, it was 28 million. In 23, it was 36 million, and now it's 46 million. So it's one of significant growth over the last few years that we're really proud of. And then the other part is the realised or unrealised gains on assets. That goes back to some of the stuff Sir Rob was talking about, which is gains on the equities and assets that we hold, primarily in the commercial space, the Ngati growth space. So if we talk about that in the equities, because of a diversified portfolio and the good work that Greg and the team have done, that's a return over 10% in that area. That's a really good return. So they're growing that base to help us, and that's reflected here. So those two things have meant that the total group revenue has increased to 73 78 million. So it's a big return. Expenses for the not-for-profit stuff has gone up as well. So we've paid more people and we've paid for the projects to be completed. And a little bit of increased finance costs. So interest rates were relatively high in that year, but also we took out a little bit of extra debt. And that makes sense, so long as you make more money on what you put the money into than the interest you're paying on the debt. And that's what we did. So the group performed well in that sense. So this next slide is about a position. A position in time, and you can think of it as like a camera flash at that point in time. So on the 30th of June 2024, our balance date, this is what the group had in assets and liabilities, okay? And then the difference between those is, if you like, the book value are our net assets or equity that Sir Rob mentioned. So it's what if you like, the group is worth in total. So we had a little bit of movement, current assets and non-current assets. Current assets went a little bit down because we had a bit too much cash at that point. I'll talk through in a bit. We'd still got plenty of cash, but we had a high point of that. So we reduced that and we invested. And we also had some projects that we were working on. For example, the honey extraction facility up in Te Araroa. So that was, if you like, a work in progress, and that became a non-current asset, something that's got a long benefit. So that became a non-current asset. So they went up, and liabilities went up a little bit again, mainly in the borrowing space, as we used leverage to make money. But then, if you look at the overall position, the group's worth has gone up from 251 million to 259 million. So it's a positive story. The assets are being kept safe and grown. Okay. I should talk to a little bit. There's a new item, just for the ones wondering, in case there's a question. There's a bit of a non-controlling interest thing. It's a new thing. It's because we've, as part of the honey extraction facility, we sought partners to, if you like, to go into business with for that part. For example, Trust Tarafti was one of those, and so they have a part of that. And the Whetu Matarau Trust as well. So that represents, if you like, a little bit, the bit that's not quite ours, it's someone else's, but by far majority of that number is ours. So it's a really positive thing. Cash, I briefly mentioned, if I just take a step back and big picture, we had 21 million in cash as a group at the start of the year, and we had 16 million at the end of the year. So we drew down a little bit of cash. Why did we do that? Well, actually, at the end of last year, we had a high point for unnecessarily high. We had just cashed out some investments that we reinvested, so it wasn't cash anymore. And we used it for some operations and things like that. So we took it down to 16 million, but the group as a whole remains in a very healthy cash position. It's certainly liquid, and it's in good shape. If I split to what it is, yes, we've used it in operations, and yes, we've invested in things, and then the cash, if you like, from the financing side was through us taking money out in borrowings to use these things. So that made good sense to us. So if I summarise things quickly, yes, net profit, revenue went up, all positive. Expenses went up to correspond with the increased revenue that we had, but still with a very positive result. Assets and equity increased. These are the things we want to see. We're doing more. This slide seems very positive, and it is, with a note of caution for the year ahead that we're in, recognising the tough economic times that the country is going through, and some of the questions that have touched on this as well. We are not immune to everything that is going on, especially in the government space with our service delivery being government contracts. So what we're doing is fighting hard to keep the contracts that we've got, and show that what we're doing is very worthwhile, and so far so good in that space, if we can level that out, while trying to make cost efficiencies where we can. So there are efficiency gains that we can make to protect the organisation. We're trying to find those, get our resourcing levels right and things like that. So as long as we're proactive in this space, then we can try and keep our charitable arms, our not-for-profit arms level, while the Ngati Growth group continues to go very well in the equity markets in the year to date. So hopefully that diversified portfolio will then play its part in keeping the group safe, if that makes sense. That is most of what I wanted to talk about. I realised I was just leaving on a bit of a tougher note because we were in tough times, and so I wanted to just talk about something else. Forgive me, George, I know I'm holding people here, but my brother-in-law is a principal, and he was clearing out an old cupboard the other day, and he found episode 26 of Ngati Link, produced in 2003. Albie thought I'd stole this from her little stash, but no, it was my brother-in-law's, I can assure you, Albie. And in it talks to kapahaka exponents rock Parauranga. So this was one of the stories. Now, I was just looking through, I don't know every face, but I saw Sir Selwyn at the back. He was dancing away. And then I thought I saw George's brother, but it didn't make sense because it was for the over 60s. And I just asked him, I said, is that your brother? And he said, no, that's my father there at the back there dancing. And the reason I bring it up is that as someone come from Britain, my daughter, forgive me talking whānau for a bit, my daughter was born in Britain but raised here from very young times. She's 9 years old now. She just did her kapahaka and she knows more te rā than me. She's better, much better at kapahaka than me. And the standard of the kapahaka across the group was really inspiring, for someone like me, and I can only imagine for you guys, for your tamaneki and mokopuna. So be assured that the culture and the heritage that is coming through here is in safe hands, if my 9-year-old can outperform me and many others. So. Oh, I've got to do my motion. 1 second. Oh, I've gone too far. All right, how do I go back? Here we go.
I so move. Bernarda move. Second. Those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary.
Is that the motion he moved that was written up there, or is it that counts?
Oh, sorry, Sir Selwyn. Yeah, we've got to do both, and I might have missed a slide. I might do this twice. One, can we do one for the accounts first? Can I have? Can we do that, Mr. Chair? It's been, okay, and I'm not sure I've got a slide for my next one. Have I got my next one? No, I haven't. I've missed a slide. Sir Selwyn's pointed out.
We've got to move here. Second at the back here.
Thank you.
Those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, carried.
Nō reira, e aku rangatira, ma te mahi tahi, ka ea nāua wata. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Koe re ngā kōrero Steve Osler, me ngā kōrero mo whairawa, ngā kōrero mo ngā piuta o te Runanganui a Ngati Porou o te rai o tātou Ngati Porou. Ko te ahue nei, ko te kai kōrero kei te whai mai, ko he kia parata, ko ia te tumuaki tuarua o te Runanganui a Ngati Porou.
Substantive item of the agenda standing between you and lunch. We've all been sitting here for a really long time. I'm going to summarise, but it would be helpful, I think, if everybody just got up, turned around again and then sat down, because you have been sitting for so long. How does this work?
Oi, nō rei tēnei wā kei te whātorotoro haere te iwi, e haroa nei rātou e noho wana nō reira. A kuni ka hoki atu tātou ke he kia parata.
No. No. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou e whakawhaiti nei mō tēnei hui o te Runanganui o Ngati Porou. Tēnā koutou kei te iwi kāinga nā koutou I manaaki I a tātou I tēnei rā, I roto I tēnei whare ātāhua. Nō reira, kia koutou, kia tātou, ngā mihi nui te whai wāhi I tēnei rā hātarei, te haramai ki te whiriwhiri ngā kōrero e pāna ki te Runanganui me a koutou pātai. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. I'm Hekia Parata, for those who don't know me, and I am the Deputy Chair of Te Runanganui o Ngati Porou. I am reporting to you this afternoon on two significant pieces of work that our new board has carried out on your behalf and in the interest of a stronger future for Ngati Porou whānui, those of us here at home and those of us kei te whenua, kei te ao rānei. So the first one's not that sexy, but it is actually essential, and that is the statutory framework that Te Runanganui operates under. And by that, I mean the group of Te Runanganui o Ngati Porou, not simply our board as the parent board. And then I'm going to go on to the more exciting part, and that is the strategic direction that our new board is proposing with significant work over the balance of the term of our board. So it is a year this month that 12 of us were successfully elected to the board, and as you heard Patrick say, he's from Te Ao Tahito. No, he didn't actually say that, but Patrick and Ngā are the two trustees that have come forward from the former board. Now, in recognition of the amount of time and how important particularly the strategic direction is, I just want to assure you that two things are going to be happening, because we're going to gallop through this, or maybe canter. We are having a huia iwi on the 4th of January at Uepohatu. It is the day after Pā Wars, and we are hopeful that those who are energetic and athletic and culturally capable, who have come to Pā Wars and tried very hard to beat Te Horo, you will all stay on and come to the huia iwi on the 4th. And at that huia iwi, we will be doing much more detailed and substantive discussion about the strategic direction. So this is just an introductory taster for you, to excite you about the possibilities and to stimulate ideas that you want to see being realised as part of the strategic direction. So don't panic if you think that this has gone too fast. It isn't. This is intended to be energising and uplifting, and then for there to be more detailed engagement on the 4th, and then we want to have a program of ongoing engagement, connection and communication with you all through all of next year, and indeed through the term of this board. Ka pai? Ka pai. All right, so the first item that I'm going to be addressing is the updating of the trust deed that is the statutory framework, the law that Te Runanganui has to work within. In the past, when there has been a review of this, and the last one was 2017, if substantive changes are being made, then we are required to take that to a special general meeting. That has not happened in this review. This has much more been a housekeeping review to make sure that errors or minor errors or spelling or clauses that needed to be addressed, that it is aligned with the Trust Act that was itself updated. And we have worked with Chapman Tripp, and I'm proud and delighted that our partner that facilitated that work with us is Te Ao Pare Jews, he mokopuna te kapunga, and she provided the requisite expert lawyers in trust law to work with us. And we had a little team working on that, and then our board considered each of our reports in order to be able to come here today and tell you that we are recommending that this meeting accept the updates. Now, there are two assurances you can have. One is that the specific tracked changes of the bill, of the deed, I beg your pardon, are on our website, and the analysis that supported that is on our website. And really what we are saying to you is that we have relied on technical legal experts in this regard. The board has assured itself that the updates are satisfactory and comprehensive for where we are now. And we reserve the possibility that with the fresh strategic direction, we might want to make some transformational changes to our deed. And if that is the case, we will come back to you and talk about what that is, and we will call a special general meeting if that is what happens. Marama? Kapai. All right, so I'm therefore not going to take you through every detail of the provisions and clauses that we have updated, but I am going to, well, I've told you what we're doing. We've updated the parent board's trust deed, and we've updated Toitu's trust deed. We have put on pause the review of Ngati growth. They are not established under a trust and have a different legal framework. And we also have put on pause the Ngati Porou oranga, because in the Hauora restructuring a couple of years ago, they were modernised and updated, and we will talk to each of those boards about whether there needs to be any new alignment arising out of the strategic direction. Kapai? Okay, so the recommendation therefore for the trust deed is, I'll tell you what it is. That the AGM notes, we are simply asking you to note this 2024 trust deed review report on the effectiveness of the arrangements in Trump and Toitu trust deeds and the proposed amendments to those deeds. There. Kapai? Ag? No, it depends what the question is.
Just really wanting to know whether there's been provisioning made for the changes with the Māori Fisheries Amendment Act.
Tira? Taihoa. I don't think it's incumbent. Is Tira here? Yes. Oh. I don't think it's caught by this.
I recently attended a hui with Te Olu Kai Mona in Gisborne around the changes to the Māori Fisheries Act, where there's a requirement for the changes of the constitutions of the MEOs. So there was a requirement to have those changes made. And I think there's a time frame of like maybe a year or 2 years at maximum that we have got to do that.
Yeah.
So just making that point.
Yeah, no. The hui, I think, was attended on behalf of the board by Whaimotu Jews, and I understand there will be changes needed also in the shareholding structures of Aotearoa Fisheries and other entities, so that's an ongoing piece of work. Oh, sorry.
Let's not get sidetracked by that at the moment. Let's just accept that the particular deeds, that the updates we are talking about, constitute housekeeping. That discussion, which if we do need to amend, we can capture in step 2, and then there would be a special general meeting. Okay? Kapai. All right. So simply we're asking that the AGM note this. Can I have a mover that it be noted? Thank you. Karen. Thank you, Karen. And a seconder? Okay, it's bright lights out there. Hunara. And can you put the motion? Aye. Kapai. So now we're going to the strategic review. The way that this presentation is going to operate, I'm assured, but we've seen the connection drop off all through the morning, is that there will be a key slide that I'm speaking to, and then there will be a rotation of faces and of your relations that are showing us the diversity of Ngati Porou people here and away to both entertain you but also connect you as I quickly go through the landing slide. Okay, so this is about the strategic direction. It is not yet the strategic plan. When we develop a strategic plan off this, we will also be expecting that our subsidiaries, part of the group, will align their annual plans so that we are all going in a common direction with the parent board and the subsidiary boards. Okay. So the thing to say is, and this picture will be familiar to all the loyal attenders of Hui A Iwi. And why it is up here, it is to say that although I'm about to outline a fresh strategic direction, it is located in this enduring vision and mission and these po of the wharenui that hold up our Ngati Porou. So it provides the context. E ki, Thomas. Hikama, I've got so many pages here. Hold on a minute. Okay, so this is Te Aokairo Clark, who I think is doing, she's 5, she's doing her first deer spotting at Pākirikiri. And she is modelling for us the shift in our focus. So it's time for us to, we've had quite a discussion as our new board about the fact that, and you've heard presentations this morning, all of those activities, the social and commercial activities, we could actually hire out. And our boards are made up of people who are experts who aren't necessarily Ngati Porou. Now we've chosen to have those mix of things and we want those to continue to be ready and relevant. But being Ngati Porou, that is our primary business focus, concern and responsibility. Nobody outside Ngati Porou cares about the state, the robustness, the weakness or whatever of our identity, of who we are as unique and distinct uri of this iwi from this specific place in the world. So we have prioritised as a board the importance of our Ngati Poroutanga and the range of responsibilities and contributions that we would have to expect as a result of that. And as a result, the board has identified 7 drivers that we think are critical to ensuring that we can both, ensure and assure our ongoing identity as a unique iwi and body of people, as well as having great social, economic and environmental well-being. So, these things aren't switching around. Anyway, look at how fabulous all these... So here they are. So the first thing is that the board has been very explicit that we need to reset to the heartland. We need to be making sure that here at home we are strong and flourishing in order that we can keep the connections with the 100,000 other Ngātis that do not live in the heartland. So this is about making sure that here at home we are strong. And we'll give you examples of some of the steps we've already taken to start giving practical effect to that. The second one is that we want to restore and build the cultural strength of Ngati Porou and to make sure that our unique te reo ake o Ngati Porou me tōna mita o tēnā hapu, o tēnā hapu, o tēnā hapu kei te pakari tonu. I tēnei wā mō ngā whakatipuranga kei te haramai. So our second one is that we are culturally strong and fluent, right? There was a lot of talk, and you will see in this that it reflects the discussions and the priorities from our 13 January Hui A Iwi at Uapohatu at the beginning of the year. there was a very big priority placed on reo and tikanga, the environment, and our capacity to be in charge of our own lives. The next is that our hapu are the anchors of our Ngati Poroutanga. It's not te Runanganui o Ngati Porou, it's not the boards of our subsidiaries, it is us in our hapu identity, being involved with our marae, collectivising and connecting with each other and finding ways to agreeably disagree but be focused on the long-term common goal. And so our haputanga and the everyday kaitiaki of our identity, whānau and taiao. As I said, these are the 7 drivers. I'm going to come to, this is all about arithmetic, the 3 outcomes we're focused on, but these are the 7 drivers that Ngati's confident, connected and capable wherever we are. Okay? Yep, we're focusing on the heartland, but we are also focusing on that web of connection called whakapapa. How do we make sure that wherever we are in the world, if we're Ngātis, it doesn't matter where we are in the world, we take that identity with us. What matters is that we are able to give voice, give practice, give effect to that identity. Our next one is that reciprocity is restored. We all contribute, we all benefit. Ka pai? The giving and taking needs to arrive at a balance. So reciprocity. The 6th one is that we are nation builders as iwi and as citizens. Ngati Porou has a proud history of contributing to the shaping of our country. Yes, in terms of sea company, yes, in terms of the military valour of Moana Ngārimu, reflective of soldiers of that time, and now Wili Ha'apiata also from the coast, but also Tāpi Runangata, the carvings and the weavings of our wharenui. Anyone who's gone to other areas, which I did as quite a young person, I was shocked to discover that not everybody had carved and tuku throughout not only their wharenui, but in our case, often in our wharekai. And that's an actual cultural wealth that we need to continue to invest in, but also to play our part in being nation builders. And this is a time for nation building. Okay, so those who have been participating in Toitu Te Tiriti in an active way, while numbers who haven't walked are supporting, this is a time of nation building, and Ngati Porou needs to be contributing its part. And finally, the 7th driver is we honour Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Ka pai? So those are our 7 drivers, and they are... now, so... some of you may know this haka. I grew up learning it. I think Papa Maru Karaka might have taught us, you Selwyn, and then you taught us. Anyway, so it goes, whakarere, ihoana, te kakau o te hoi, ko manini to manini aro. And that means down dips the blade of the paddle, sweeping behind, flashing before. It's from, as I said, from Kuratiwaka. And the translation is from the Ngārimu VC investiture booklet. And this young man is Hendrix McCarthy Green, who has whakapapa connections here to Tokomaru Bay and to Tikitiki. And he's using a slack line to move between trees in the Okitu Reserve. Okay, so these are what we are recommending as our 3 priority strategic outcomes. Ngati Poroutanga, our heartland, our taiao, and our local level hapu leadership and governance. That's what we're proposing that we focus on. We use those 7 drivers that I supportive for the way that we live here, and hopefully can attract home many more Ngātis to come back here. There was this discussion earlier in respect specifically of Rohe Tipuna 6. When we talk about local level hapu leadership and governance, that is a piece of work that the board wants to work with you all on over the term of the board, but as a priority. Because we don't want to govern by slogans, okay? So, and these are common things. Oh, just give us, we want to exercise our mana motuhake. Kapai, how's that going to happen? Just, you know, we've got our tino rangatiratanga, so that's what we're going to operate with. Great. But as my cousin Rhonda said, well, what is that? Is that by marae, by hapu? Is it by community townships? Is it by, you know, charitable trusts or the ones that have been set up for the takutai? We've got so many proprietorial groups set up to look at just this little bit and that little bit, and they all overlap, and then you find that the energy is taken on who's got mana over this versus who's got mana over that. My ambition, and I'm talking just personally now, is that we get to a stage where there is absolutely one hapu level, not one hapu, the Rohingya Tipuna level governance is what you focus on for the purposes of delivering outcomes, for the purposes of maintaining your distinct haputanga, the purposes of ensuring that your wharenui, hey, the purposes of stopping calling it the marae and getting back to it being the pā. You know, the gulf between those two things. The marae has become where governments of the day have come to consult about fisheries or takutai moana. We grew up where mum, who was brought, by the way, our mother was born here in Tokomaru Bay. Our tipuna koka, Ruby White Reedy, was from here, and this is where our connection is. Mum was brought up in Te Horo, Rohe Tipuna 3. She never once said to us, "Ke te haere koutou ki te marae." She would always say, "Haere koutou ki te pā, tēnei rā." Okay? And so there is a big difference between what those two words and concepts evoke. Anyway, we need to get to local level governance that is consistent. It's not whakapiti-piti with if you're on the takutai moana versus if you're on the hauora versus whether you're on the IMPV, HQRZ, whatever. You know, it is about like what are we trying to achieve for our people and how do we do that in the most efficient and effective way. So that's a big piece of work. What are our first steps? Oh, by the way, that picture I just showed you, that's, people here in Tokomaru Bay will recognise this. These young people, well, not all young, Pele. No, not well. They have been coming regularly for hui about the taiao, about tikanga that they want to practice and so forth. So we thought that was an appropriate photo to have. Where are we going? Oh, okay. What are our first steps? This is Tāwhai Kura, and that is his papa, Lance Ricard, and he's helping his papa to dig the hole for his whenua. You know, that is tikanga in practice. That is connection between generations. It doesn't have to be academic or theoretical. It's practical, this kind of kaupapa. Okay, so some things can happen quickly, but actually we can only go as fast as people want to go. And we need to go fast because there are a lot of things at risk. We have fewer and fewer pakeke who are our link between what was and what might be. And we've got to learn as fast as we can and honour that and pass it on. Right, I'm sure there's lots of talking points, but we're moving right along here. Right. This is our first initiative. There's 100,000 Ngātis who ticked the iwi box for Ngati Porou in the last census and said, that is my priority primary affiliation. Only 4,000 live in the heartland, 11,000 live in Tūranga, right? So that's nearly 90,000 who don't live in either place. And we often don't even connect with each other here in the heartland, let alone with those in Gisborne, let alone elsewhere. So that's one of the initiatives we're going to be talking to you early in the new year about. How can we run a drive to get more uri to connect? This has typically occurred when we're trying to increase the register for voting. Our board is drawing a clear distinction between if you're registering to vote in the elections every 4 years and you have to select one rohe tipuna, that is purely for voting. We are now saying, no, we want to build out that whole whakapapa of who we are and who we are connected to, and how do we engage in a way that folks want to come home or be involved in initiatives, etc. and so forth. So we'll be talking to you about your ideas on that at Ue Pohatu on the 4th of January. Yep. Next. Look at how gorgeous Ngati Porou people are. I mean, you just look, you know, whenever you're at an into trouble where you can just go, oh no, they're Ngātis. Oh, I just did that. Oh, here's our little one. Okay, so I've already touched on this, is that we really want to focus on what are the dimensions of identity, not for theory, so that we practice them. Those of you who came to the 13th of January this year, when we were talking about the coalition government's program, and folks were talking about, you know, we want to speak our reo. Good, speak it. It's not in a file in a government office. Our reo is not locked up in a vault in the beehive. Actually, we can just speak it. That's how we keep our reo alive. Okay? And so we will be discussing with the Toitu board about the centrality of their role in this regard, and we look forward to doing so. I already said, Te Ao Kairo is Tāwhai Kura's big sister. She was the one refocusing. Oh, ka tapu mokopuna tēnei. We'll come back. I didn't realise he was in this shot. And there, look, this is our kai karakia o te ata. Papa Bau, kei konei koe, be toa tāhua. Right. Okay. So I've already touched on this, and we will be talking to you about the kinds of ideas we have. We want, by the time the next election occurs for the board, we want heaps of people competing, standing for election for this board in 2028? 7? What's 4 years? 27, November 27, 3 years from now, right? Our thinking as the board is that we will spend the next couple of years of our term as a board focused on the transition to hapu-led governance, what kinds of things are required, the practices involved, and then be full throttle into that approach for the final year of the term of this board, which will be 2027. And Ngati Porou people will just be so excited, just so fizzing with what's actually happening versus talking about it, that we will have people who want to be, you know, are competitive to be on this board. And we want to look at the processes by how rohe tipuna want to actually nominate, elect, say, anei wa mātou tangata. Right? Because at the moment, we are using completely government implemented approaches, and so there's an opportunity for us to restore to ourselves how we want our representation. I'm going off script because we haven't actually discussed this in the board, but so that's what we're talking about. And here's the... Is that you, Thomas? Just taiho kia mutu, do you mind? Right. Thomas was the head prefect at Ngata College when I was a little third former, and now still he's carrying on like that. Hang on. Okay, so we want to invest in the heartland, and I indicated to you before we're taking practical steps. The board has decided that we will meet 12 months, once in each month. 6 of those and we've already started that, will be in Ruatoria, not in Gisborne, and the other 6 will rely on tonos from the Rohe Tipuna to host us in one of their marae, wharenui, where we will hold our board meeting. So we've done that at Kariaka, Hine Pare, Whangara, and the Ruatoria office. And that's the second thing that we are going to be prioritising, is to establish the Heartland headquarters in our capital of Ruatoria. And we are in the process, we'll be in the process with our Chief Executive of looking at what the options are, because we also want to make sure that the staff working in Ruatoria are entitled to and should have a safe and healthy work environment. And so we see the headquarters answering that be where the board meets, that will be where the chair will be located, and we will be moving to that over the term of this board. So those are the practical things. And then finally, why does it do that? Delivering a street, yes, so the hui aiwi, put it in your calendars. If you can't come, make sure your mokopuna or your mother or your sister, and your brothers and your husbands and your whatever's, significant others, all come along to the hui iwi on the 4th at Uepohatu and be involved in discussing, debating, recommending some of the practical next steps. And so, now, this is Harawira Te Kaha Gardner, my mokopuna, and he's kitted up and pointing in the right direction, and there's a green light for go. Okay? So the motion is that the AGM receives this report on the proposed strategic direction 2025 to 2030. Is there a mover?
I will be happy to move that report because I'm actually very impressed with the direction that the board is taking, and it sings in my heart from a Hapu perspective that I have lots and lots of expectations of ongoing.
Thank you for moving, Egg. Thank you for moving. Pearl, is that you, Pearl? I can't see. Yep, Pearl is seconding. So can you do the...
Aye. To the contrary, carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ngā mihi nui kia tātou.
Koera te kōrero hi ki a pirata, me ana kōrero mo te anga whakamua o te Runanganui a Ngati Porou, hei ngā tau kei te heke mai.
To Ngati Growth and all the reports.
That might be you, Thomas.
Bailey, moved by Bailey, second by Thomas. Those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, carried. So aroha mai ngā mea o koutou e whatameina I te irirangi I rorohiko, kare te poari e whai taima ki te whakautu a koutou pātai. Engari kia hui mātou, te poari hei te marama o tihema, mā mātou e whiriwhiri, ka whakautu ngia a koutou pātai. Now we're going on to, I believe, general business.
But only if the item has been pre-noted to you. We're not just opening the floor for any general business.
Yep.
So.
Can you say it? Hang on. Can you say this?
Yeah, I mean, we're opening the floor for general business, but for an AGM, that item should have been notified to the Secretary. It's not an opportunity for just the free-for-all, it's the AGM. So have we had any pre-notified items for general business?
No.
No, we haven't? No. Okay. Sorry, who's the yes?
Yep.
Albie!
E ko tai tai atu ki te wāhanga o the general business, kei te papa tētahi tanga te pirangi ana ki te kōrero. Hoi anō, a puni ka rongo i ngā kōrero kei tōna puku hei whakarongotanga ake mā te iwi.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear, but we're not going to go on forever today. I'll be cutting things short. Not to be rude, but to move on. Kia ora i te whānau. Ko Praurangi, tāwhipirangi ahau, nō Ruatoria. I bring two pātai, well not pātai, but just two issues to the table. You don't have to answer them. I just want it noted. And to understand where I'm coming from, because one of these issues people will think is controversial, but to understand where I'm coming from to bring this is that I was brought up in this era, meaning brought up in this, I was brought up in a highborn family, and my mother whāngai is Heniuru Taitoko, and during my childhood I was with her when we would go to all the hui that essentially established where we are now. So that was with Papa Tamati, you know, Uncle Waho, Papa Api, etc. Now, one of the pātai I bring is about cannabis. And to put it across to everyone, we've asked, you know, we've got a cannabis industry that started in Ruatoria. Liz Ngārimu was part of the group that had the initial kōrero about what were sustainable opportunities for our people. And so Manukari, Pānapa Ehau, went out, talked to the Ministry of Health about getting that. And my involvement in it is that, saying that I've come from this, I dropped from grace. When I was 19, I'd done some dumb shit. But like many of our rangatahi now, they're doing worse stuff than what I was doing. But I ended up getting banished back to Ruatoria to live with my auntie Hini, of all people. And my auntie Hini kicked me out of her house for crumbs of cannabis. I got sent to live with Gaga Thompson. I went from here to here. And when I went that low, I never came back to our people. I stayed with our people and the poorest people in our communities, and I live with them. So the takies I bring, I can bring them as someone who's at this level but live with our people at the bottom. So the cannabis thing is that we have a cannabis industry. We brought the cannabis topic to our Runanganui board many times, but it's gone nowhere. And when we had Holdco, I spent time with the CEO, Shane, spent time with Wayne, and we talked about how we could try to get cannabis into our iwi. Now, for a lot of our people, you probably still have a negative stigma about cannabis from seeing whatever you've seen. But in today's world, the world is moving on. Cannabis is making money for many communities. It's healing communities. And with all the nānara that we see around in our communities right now, a lot of it you guys will never see because what you see on the screens is not relating to what's happening in our communities. Now, in saying that, the history of cannabis on the East Coast goes right back to our farmers. When the urban drift of the 50s happened, we had no workers. A lot of our farmers took that risk to grow cannabis to make money. And then a lot of our whānau have done that since then. Being one who was banished from our people, I took that on. I grew in the hills of Ruatoria like many of us. Our communities were helped with the money from weed. Whether you like it or not, that's the truth. Now, in saying that, going to be rude, but can you...
I know, Mr. Chairman. I'm having to say this so that people can grasp it, because if I just say cannabis, there are people here that don't understand where it's coming from or why.
But we understand that there is a cannabis industry going on the coast.
We'd like to see some support from our own, because what is happening is that we're going out to other iwi who want to follow our model, but they're asking, where is the House of Porou? Why isn't our runanga behind us?
That is definitely a taupapa for you to speak with
So,
Rob at Ngati Porou.
in saying that, what I've asked is that I would like to speak to somebody at that high capacity to have those conversations, because we've brought these conversations to the table before and they've gone nowhere. We need to make it happen for our people. There's economical values in it. The other pātai I have is around our communities are plagued with the destruction of meth. We are plagued with the disrespect of young people, doing burnout, stealing, no respect to our people. And as a community of Rotoria, we're just starting to make a stand now because we've had enough. And we'd like to see some of our board come to our hui next week on Wednesday and listen to what the people have said. And the thing is that we're not relying on the police. It goes back to, I'm going to throw this in here, let's talk about Mokena Kohere, when he told the Crown, we need Ngati Porou to sort out Ngati Porou. We don't need outside influences, we need our own, because what we're showing here doesn't relate to what's happening in our townships. None of those photos showed me people with meth, who are on meth. None of those photos showed me the kids that are struggling in our towns right now because of meth. And the biggest thing is, a lot of our whānau here, they know it's their own. But they can't do anything because our people on meth are out the gate. But the biggest thing I want to bring is that with everything you've shown, Auntie Hekia, with all those beautiful photos, is that in 20 years' time we won't have that. We are 25 years into a meth epidemic on the East Coast. I saw it in the late 90s. And our people now, if you're not seeing it, we've got crack babies that are already in the system, that are nearly 20 years old. And if we don't do anything, we're just going to have our next race of people are not going to be Ngati Porou focused. So that's all I wanted to bring.
Second person to raise this meth thing. So I'll just let you know that Anne Huriwai has been running through Huarahi Pai meth programs for the past 2 years. Just to let you know, that's one avenue to follow.
With the Huarahi Pai is a great program, but we have no wraparound support afterwards. There's no post support. And our people, our graduates, are coming out clean, but going straight back into it.
That wasn't an answer to your question.
No, but I'm just saying, because that's the reality. We say we got Huarahi Pai, but there's no post-recovery process for them.
Questions need to be very...
Tāku ki te kuari, ki ngā taimahi o roto i te kuari. Rarau atu ki ngā kaupapa i tono mai a program. Wahaina mai, titiro me pēhea, tātou e āwhina i aua kaupapa. No te mea aua kaupapa, i kei te tā whakatau maha e te iwi, nā reira, Ngati Porou oranga, toi tū Ngati Porou, Ngati Growth, tātou, rarau atu ki ngā mea e rua. Tere te mea, koe rānake, engari, tāku kia tātou manaki, tēnā pēr kei a tātou, te rongoa mo te rāhota. Kia ora.
Can the questions be succinct, direct? Aroha, please.
And I don't even know if this is a motion, but I'm okay, and in my so I'm going to say again, this is the third time in a row where I've asked for our communication to be happening. We used to have the newsletters every month, then we went to the Ngati link, and they did restart, and now we're on stop. That's it.
Okay. Kia ora tātou, ko Kate Walker toku ingoa no Te Atanga Mate, Rohinga Tipuna 5. I just wanted to stand to say that hapu within our rohinga have expressed concern regarding kaupapa taiao managed within Trump Nui, particularly in relation to the lack of hapu engagement and participation on kaupapa taiao within or impacting our rohinga, such as cyclone recovery, as the woody debris management that was referenced in the annual report today, trek response, the Waiapu Accord and the JMA. Thanks to the Committee Taiao of Trump Nui to meeting with us after various requests to discuss our concerns. I would just like to note that whānau and hapu are the kaitiaki over our respective wāhi, not Trump Nui. All agencies, including Trump Nui, working within or impacting our takiwa must engage with the respective hapu. It is our understanding that the Committee Taiao is developing a work plan for kaupapa taiao. This must be developed and implemented with hapu. As a first principle, Trump Nui should be facilitating and providing for hapu to lead and inform kaupapa taiao in our takiwa. And it is promising to hear that that is in the strategic direction of Trump Nui. We now require a direct relationship agreement with Trump Nui to determine how hapu and Trump Nui will work together on all taiao matters within or impacting our takiwa. And we have also requested that representation of the Committee Taiao to be extended to include one hapu nominated representative from each rohinga to act as a conduit between Trump Nui and respective hapu within their rohinga. Thank you, and us in Rohinga Tipuna 5 are committed to working with the Committee Taiao to ensure this. Kia ora.
Tēnā tātou Ngati Porou, ko Penny Campbell paku tēnei. Penny Junior. I'm standing for talking about Pāwars coming up on the 3rd of January. Whānau, I would really like to see everybody that comes to participate that they bring their kai with them and take their kai home with them when they finish. If whatever they bring in, if they're bringing in drinks, take them home with them, because on the 4th we're having our strategic hui, and I'd hate to see the piles of rubbish and recyclables that we leave there on the 3rd for us to be a big wānanga on the 4th. So whānau, looking forward to Pāwars, but very much looking forward to everyone taking responsibility for their waste. Kia ora mai.
Tēnā tātou, ko Lillian Te Hau Wōra Hau, no konei noho ana. So to the board, first, so I stand for many people that couldn't make it here today. The first question, because we had the trust deed that I've been asked, is how can Koka Hekia be in a tunga of deputy chair when she had not served a full term prior to the last elections? So that's question one.
Okay, so full discussion went amongst the board, and then we sought legal advice. So that's how it happened.
Are you able to make that legal advice available to the whānau or your beneficiaries?
Well, what's the question? What was that, sorry?
Are you able to make that legal advice available to us, beneficiaries?
The board, we've only got one board member that's not here, and they can hear what I'm saying, so I'm obviously not telling lies.
Whānau have actually asked for the evidence, which is why I'm standing.
I don't think we got written advice. The lawyer was present at the time of discussion. Did we get written? Yeah. Okay, we did get written as well.
Could we please see that written advice from the iwi lawyers? I hear tautoko. Do whānau tautoko? Ngā mihi kia koutou. The second partai that I've been asked to raise is the investment into Te Ara Tipuna by our board, both previous and current. Given our whānau are struggling, our whānau are struggling, and we are struggling with the decisions and the investments that the board is currently making. Along with that, we believe that there are conflicts of interest. Both Te Ara Tipuna board members and current and previous board members. So we would like independent advice and an investigation into the conduct as beneficiaries. Do I have any tautoko? Actually, too many quiet people. Don't sit on the fence. So, with a raise of hands within this room and outside, do we have support to get independent advice in terms of the conflicts?
Okay.
Kia ora tātou. I'm the kōkahi here that Lillian is referring to. The questions are about how I came to be Deputy Chair. The majority of the board voted for me to be Deputy Chair. I'm not aware that my performance has been lacking in any way, and those of you who don't know me but saw the presentation that I just gave, you have seen some of the work that I have been involved with on the board. I'm also the project lead of Te Ara Tipuna and have been for 3 years. We invite you to go to the Te Ara Tipuna website. It's tearatipuna.nz. We've had 2 years of consultation. We've met at most pa around Ngati Porou, including 2 meetings that Lillian hosted at the Tokomaru Bay Football Club. We've been to every township in the past 2 years, and we are in the process of having landowner meetings, because landowners are the people that in the end will decide whether this proposition to build a 500-kilometre trail from Te Toka-a-Taio ki Tarakeha in Opotiki will go ahead or not. It is intended to be an economic, social and environmental artery for all those whenua Māori blocks that at the moment are either not accessible, don't have a governance authority, therefore can't get capital from a bank in order to develop anything. This project is a multi-layered project. I'm extremely proud of it, and any of the conflicts of interest which are being alleged by Lillian, and asking a group of hui here who may not know the detail to say yes, we tautoko it without having thorough knowledge of what is actually being proposed. Every report on Te Ara Tipuna, every one of them, on coastal erosion, on archaeology, on geotech, all of them are on the website. It's all public. Nothing is a secret. Now, 360 kilometres of the 500 are Ngati Porou. So we are 75% of this proposal. Of the 453 land blocks that are proposed to be traversed, 316 are Ngati Porou. Many of them have no governance entity because the court records in the Māori Land Court Registry in Gisborne have been so under-resourced that succession orders have been there for years. And unless we can break through that logjam, those whenua Māori blocks that you all whakapapa to in some way or another will continue to be abandoned. And what this project is doing is working with the Chief Judge of the Māori Land Court, with the trustee of the Māori Trustee, and with Te Puni Kōkiri to see if we can find a way to break through that backlog, get resourcing into the court, and we are proposing that the Gisborne Registry be a pilot of that so that all the ungoverned blocks will have governorship. So another thing that I want to say is Te Ara Tupuna can only go ahead if governed authorities of the specific blocks agree to it. There is no compulsion. Nobody's being required to join this kaupapa. But I'm telling you now, it is one of the biggest whenua Māori initiatives since Tāpi Runangata did the Land Development Scheme in 1929. Now, many of you have tried to get development on your whenua, and you have struck these obstacles. Te Ara Tupuna is working to try and overcome those. And when I say Te Ara Tupuna, it's 4.5 people. It's not a major organisation. The thing that seems to have gotten on Maraika and Lillian's wick, and by the way, anyone who is part of Ngati Porou Proud, never mind posting ugly things anonymously, turn up and put your name to them. This
Kei kona ia hau, and actually you have not answered my question. All you have done is whakaiti. Hekea? Ko tēnei tōku marae. You will not speak down to me. Ko au he ahi kā. You will not speak down to me. That's what you do to our rohinga members. Well, kei te pai, let's go back to my questions that align to the Charter. Charter is the rules, Hekea.
Are an attack on my integrity. They are. You're saying, how did I become deputy chair?
I'm asking the board. I'm not just asking you. You've taken it personally.
We're not going to have an argument. I'll just close the meeting and we'll have lunch.
Kei te pai, we'll just go to the serious Ford office for the answers.
And the
Ngā
second
mihi.
one was an attack on Te Ara Tupuna. Both of those are related to me. So that's why I'm standing up in front of all of you to say I am happy to answer any question you ask to my face, as opposed to anonymous 7-page posts that go out around the internet. Mark Twain wrote Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, and one of the things he said, I've answered them. Oh, okay.
There's no order here. Okay, Maraika, your question, and then I'm going to ask Sir Selwyn to close us in prayer.
It's going to be another attack, so I don't know why you're allowing her.
Oh, I thought because he's here by Te Kiaia.
Ata, kia ora ata. Yeah. So kia ora whānau, I'm Mareika Warmanhoven. I've done 2 terms on the Runanga Board. I was one of the inaugural members elected as well for Ruhinga Tupuna 4. Now where this is very relevant to me, why are we turning me down? Kia ora. So the thing is, the last time I was elected to the board, I myself tried to nominate an unconstitutional person as deputy chair and was declined by your brother, the chair at the time. So, no, it's interesting. No, what are you all? You don't sit at that table, all right? So don't heckle me now. I asked, so what you have, it's quite fitting that you're presenting the Constitution as an unconstitutional deputy chair. No. You were there at both times. Yeah, but we have a constitution. What is the point of a constitution if in one moment a special person comes in and gets a special place? Now here's what else happened. No. Ngā was bullied. Ngā was bullied. Your own representative. This is what they do. At least you can see.
No, you don't deal with it like that.
You just see what you don't. No, you
katoa, karanga mai mi mai, kia mata katoa oai, te whana kua Yes, I already have. Put your tono down.
Oe no le te iwi kua tai ki te mutu ngā te hui a tau mo te Runanganui a Ngati Porou mo te tau 2024 koe ngā kōrero te wā no tātou ngā uri o Porou ko te reo iri rango Ngati Porou tēnei e whakapahotu nei ki a koutou kia noho hau ora mai rā koutou.
E manaki, e hāpai. Nō reira nei rā hau e tono atu, kia tū te hui a tau ki rohinga tipuna tahi.
Kia ora, ka pai.
Ngā tapu o te roheo e araroa. No name. Te whanaua, te whakai. Oh, well, he opened it. He wants me to play. Mana whenua, ko te ahuri ngā rongonui, mga It's sad that we ended up on a little sour note, but we won't let the positives overarch the negatives. Those of you that, if you're still feeling strongly about it, I invite you to come to a board meeting in person and talk to the board. Kei te pai tēnā, mā tātou e whiriwhiri, hara mai a tinana. Also,
Oh, you're not doing those, but I'm asking if the board, all of the board meetings can be live streamed, so that the iwi around the board, given that most of us live away, can participate. Being on the council, that's one of the things that all of our meetings are live streamed, so that whānau can participate and listen in. Of course, you'll have your things that are confidential, you can't, but I'd like the board to consider that.
There's a also there's a card here, JP Terekia. Okay. No reira kei noi tātou, e iho ato mātou kaihanga matua nui te rangi. Tēnei rā te whakamoemiti atu kia koe o wāu manaki tanga ki runga kia mātou mai te timatanga o tēnei hui a tainoa mai ki tēnei wā. Whakamoemiti anō hoki kia koe te matua nui te rangi nāu nei mātou I arahi mai ki konei tēnei rā. Ka inu atu nei kia koe ke tau iho tō mairangi o tau aroha ki runga kia mātou. Arahina tēnei poari, I roto I ngā mahi, ngā tau e heke mai nei, manaki tia tiwi o Ngati Porou e inu atu nei kia koe I runga I te ngā kau maha ki tēnei wā. Me te inoi anō hoki kia mau kia tau, kia ua anō hoki au manaki tanga ki runga ki tēnā o mātou. E ihoa whakapaingi o mātou kai hei oranga mo mātou tinana. Whangai hoki o mātou wairua ki te taro o te ora. Ko ihu kraiti hoki tō mātou kai whakaora, kroria ki a koe. Āmine. Āmine.